It was at the end of March in 2021. The Friday Night Funkins game was storming everywhere, and they started to make this game into an arcade game. Since Hannah and I were fans, we knew we couldn't miss this opportunity. Are you sure they have Friday Night Funkins? Once the car was off the highway, I grumbled to Hannah. She seemed really excited.
We'll know soon. The place is in the middle of nowhere, so we won't have to queue.
This amusement arcade is so remote that I hardly found it on my GPS. Besides, the road was so difficult that it took us nearly an hour to get there. It was around 5 p.m. when we arrived. I was pretty disappointed as it was not an amusement arcade like I imagined. It's just like an old warehouse that has been poorly refurbished. I told Hannah to leave, but instead she insisted.
Come on, let's give it a try. At least we'll get free drinks.
Hannah pointed to the poster in front of the door and smiled happily. Then we got in. What? Are you kidding me? I cried out in displeasure. The whole room had only a few arcade machines. The finest place of the room is the dance area designated specifically for Friday Night Funkins. They're all brand new and look like they've never been used. At that moment, a man in his 40s, who appeared to be the owner of the store, came out to greet us. Hello, you are the first to visit us. You can drink as much free Coke as you want. Hannah was so thirsty at this point. She finished in one blink and then immediately started the Friday Night Funkins Dance Arcade. In terms of me, I didn't like this game as much as she did. If it weren't for the sake of pleasing Hannah, I wouldn't even be here. Anyway, I did not play games, nor drank the free Coke. I just stood there and watched her having fun. Hannah was so busy playing that she forgot the time. It wasn't until 10 p.m. that I managed to pull her out of that place. Are you getting even more obsessed? I dragged Hannah into the car and grumbled. She said nothing, but her face clearly showing irritation, anger, because I interrupted her gameplay. Due to busy exams, we couldn't go there for the next few days. I noticed that Hannah's face turned visibly pale. Therefore, as long as we finished the final exam, I took her there. This time, the shop owner still greeted us warmly and personally brought a tray of water for us. Just like last time, Hannah emptied one and climbed back onto the Friday Night Funkins machine.
Come on, don't just stand there like a statue.
Then I took a small sip and joined Hannah. However, not long after that, I started to feel ill. Abdominal pain, nausea suddenly came from nowhere. I rushed to the bathroom. Half an hour later, the situation was still not getting any better. I forgot my phone outside, so I tried calling outside. But Hannah must be playing so she couldn't hear me. I had no choice but to stay there for hours. Due to the pain, I fell asleep without realizing it. I woke up feeling dizzy and bitter in my mouth. It was already dark outside. God, I couldn't believe my eyes. Hannah, she's still dancing like crazy. Her footsteps didn't seem to be tiring, even though her whole body was drenched in sweat. Her face was strangely pale. There were many free bottles of water around, all of which were empty. Hannah, you're dancing for the whole time? I screamed, my stomach still aching. Instead, Hannah ignored me. When I was about to pay, I ran into the old shopkeeper who was carrying another tray of fresh water. As soon as he heard that I was going to leave, his face changed drastically. He just stood there watching and looking at me with anger. I remember begging my friend, Hannah, let's go home. The shop owner scared the hell out of me. But not only did Hannah listen to me, she became extremely unreasonable. She whirled around in my direction and yelled,
Don't you dare interrupt me again, you freaking psycho!
Then she pushed me hard and I fell to the ground. Book an Uber by yourself. That night, I left her there and went home alone. After that day, I could not contact Hannah. Neither could her family and friends. Having a bad feeling, I went back to that amusement arcade. Oh, it's only been a few days, and this place has already crowded up considerably. The Friday Night Funkins machine was full, and Hannah was nowhere to be seen. I sighed and went home. Weeks later, Hannah still didn't go to school. Her parents and the police went to look for Hannah, but strangely enough, the place seemed to have disappeared from the map. And just like that, my best friend disappeared. As time passed, I forgot about that event. Until yesterday, when I was surfing the dark web, I accidentally discovered some pictures posted by a hidden user. In the picture was an amusement arcade that was seemingly located in a remote place. Yet, it attracts unexpected visitors. My eyes fixed on the photo of the restaurant's poster. God, is that Hannah? My friend? I scrolled all the way down to the bottom and found a video attached.
Bayside High School prom was one of the most anticipated events of the year. 1 hour or two before the party got started, there were already a long line of boys and girls in splendid costumes in the hall. Stella, arm in arm with Julian, among that line, was about to enter the dancing hall. But suddenly, Stella felt something wrong with her stomach, so she had to go to the bathroom immediately. It took her more than 30 minutes to get better. Angrily cursing the lentil stews, Stella fixed her clothes and got out. After she closed the bathroom door, she noticed that it was oddly quiet for a party.
Is the prom over?
When Stella turned around, she was startled by a clown standing at the end of the hallway. He stood still like a statue. Maybe that was just a mascot the school hired for the party. But when she was about to move, the clown suddenly turned around. Stella realized there was a chainsaw in his hand. He stood still like a statue. Stella quickly ran away. At that point, Stella was extremely panicked. She didn't know what to do but just keep running in vain. Stella ran through a few turns, thinking she had escaped, but she was wrong. Another clown was standing right there. He raised his saw overhead. Luckily, Stella dodged. She kept running away. After a while, she managed to hide in a classroom. Just then, another clown appeared in the deep hallway, holding a bat in his hand. He dragged the bat against the wall while walking. The creaky sound made Stella tremble in fear. She bit her lip to stop herself from crying. The clown was standing at the door, right in front of the room where Stella was hiding. He stood there for a few minutes, then left. Stella was still in shock. She didn't know what was going on, nor why they were chasing her. She called Julian 100 times, but he didn't pick up the phone. Stella tried to keep calm and dialed 911.
Please help! There's a bunch of clowns in the school and they want to kill me!
The operator's voice did calm her down a bit. They said the police would arrive immediately, and until that, she had to stay right in the same spot. But the clowns could come at any moment.
I think I should go out and check.
No, Stella, don't.
The dispatcher said. Sure enough, Stella had just stepped out when a clown appeared. The guy aggressively opened the door, but there was no one inside. Stella was scared, her heart pounding like it was going to explode. She ran down the hallway to find the exit. The exit door was locked.
They locked the door!
She cried in panic.
The school is locked down!
She was too disturbed to hear the operator's words clearly. Now the only thing she thought about was to hide from the clowns. She rushed to the hall. It was just a few steps away. Stella could hear the clown's footsteps echoing throughout the corridor. She wiped her tears and pushed open the door. but the scene inside left her petrified. Blood was everywhere, on the walls and the disco balls, on ragged banners and the gorgeous dresses. Bodies were strewn in the cold room. Stella stepped inside. There were no survivors. All her friends were lying motionless on the floor.
Stella? What's wrong?
The operator's voice woke Stella up.
They are all dead.
Stella's voice choked. Her whole body was shaking, and her legs were stuck to the ground. She was so shocked that she couldn't move.
Stella, please make sure you're in a safe place, okay?
Yes.
Stella locked the door, frantically looking for a place to hide while she waited for the police to arrive. However, what Stella expected least was right behind her. She heard the sound of the chainsaw again. When Stella turned around, the last thing she saw was 3 identical clowns. And she, all by herself, in this room full of corpses.
Stella! After more than 30 minutes, police finally arrived at Bayside High School. The assailants were arrested while fleeing the scene. Regrettably, more than 30 students have all...
He was so excited to see the gloomy woods ahead.
If you get lost, just follow the rope. It'll show you the way out.
The tour guide said when the car stopped at the foot of the mountain.
It's very beautiful and deadly.
He tried to get as much footage as he could before it got dark.
So there's no one here, just us.
Ben panned the camera around the woods. The 100-year-old soaring tree trunk surprised and attracted Ben. Well, it was not as scary as people said. He kept following the small path until he came across a tree with a piece of paper on it. It was a missing person poster, but it wasn't the only one. Dozens of these posters were pinned on every tree around. The number was no less than 10.
Oh my God, they're all missing.
Ben moved the camera closer to the posters. Skimming through the information, he realized that the victims all went missing on the 13th day of the month.
All these people came from different places, but they all disappeared on the 13th.
Ben turned impatient. Were these pieces of paper real, or were they just some practical jokes? If the information was true, something terrible must have happened. Then who was the one to post these papers? If they were fake, then who would make this terrifying prank? Could it be some kind of monstrous ritual?
Guys, what do you think? I think this might be some kind of ritual. Oh, shoot!
He almost cried when he noticed a figure sitting on the logs. Suddenly, the thing turned around to look at him. Its shining eyes startled him. Scared, Ben immediately took the camera and ran away. And apparently, the creature was chasing him. He kept running and running without looking back. Even when he slipped, he didn't quit running. When he reached the empty lot, he stopped, held his breath. Now he barely heard any sound of that thing.
Guys, I thought it was a bear or something.
Ben decided to spend the night on this vacant field. He set up a small tent and gathered dry wood to build a fire. The light calmed him down a bit. Tired as he was, he didn't intend to take a nap in case that bear would come back and attack him. To combat the body slump, Ben took out his camera and looked at the photos. After a while, he fell asleep. When he woke up, it was almost morning. Ben packed up his things and got up to find his way back. However, the path led him back to the empty ground where he had camped last night. Strange. He looked around and kept walking. and he was back in the same place again.
Impossible!
Ben decided to carve a mark on every tree he passed. But whatever he did, it still led him to that same place.
Damn it!
Ben cursed angrily, then turned in another direction. He didn't remember the guide's instructions.
Follow the rope. It will take you out of the forest.
Exhausted, Ben wandered hopelessly through the woods.
Is anybody there? Help me, please!
But the echo was only his own scream. Ben tried to locate the direction without paying attention to the ground. He stepped on a bear trap. His left foot clamped like it was crushed under the sharp, serrated teeth. Ben painfully tried to get his foot out of the trap, but however hard he tried, more blood flowed out and he could feel the pain devouring his brain.
Help! Help!
He could only scream out for help, but in the middle of the pine barrens, no one could hear his plea. Just as he was about to faint, he heard footsteps behind him. He was overjoyed, thinking he could be saved.
Oh, please! Help me!
He almost broke down, but the man didn't make a peep, just walked towards him, instead of helping Ben remove the trap. At this point, Ben noticed his brown fur coat, which was very similar to the fur on the monster he'd seen last night. But it was too late. The man raised the axe.
Why me?
When Ben was closing on his death, he realized that that day was the 13th.
No! No! No!
The disappearance of the male YouTuber vlogger Benjamin, or Ben, is receiving enormous attention. There are a lot of rumors surrounding the tragic incident.
You to be my Valentine. I remember the look on your face, the happiness and excitement of the day we spent together, drained from your face like water running down a plug hole. You said no.
Heather, but you haven't thought about it, right?
But you were so sure.
I said no. I don't want to be your Valentine. To me, a relationship is just friends with benefits. Nothing more.
My love is burning for you. But just like that, you walked away into the crowd of lovers. I love you. I love you so much. Is it not enough for you? That night, after you left, I sat there and cried for hours. Didn't stop crying until I fainted in the middle of a luxurious restaurant. People look at me like I'm crazy. Don't blame them. Those who never understand what true love is. After the day I was rejected by you, I couldn't leave my bed. For how long, I don't remember. Maybe 2 weeks or more. I only went out when I'm exhausted from starving myself. But instead of going to the supermarket, I couldn't help but follow the familiar route, leading to your apartment. Heather, do you know? When I saw you through the window, I felt more relieved than ever. Just as I felt the fire in me rekindle, I saw that man, the man you always hated. Who the hell he thought he was to touch you, hug you, and even put his dirty lips on your cheek. The moment you lower the window curtain, to be honest, you shut down my heart. Don't know how I got home, but you know what? When I came back to, My apartment, everything I saw was the empty room and the cuts on my body. I didn't want to live anymore. I looked at your photos and decided to make another cut on my body. Blood drops, sting. And I thought, would things be different if I died? Can I change things, even just a little bit? And that night, with a picture of you in my hand, a plan gradually formed in my head. Heather Gray, has been a few days since that man didn't pick up your phone. Well, he's dead. It's not hard to find his house and where he hid the keys. I was already hiding in the closet and waiting for him to come back from your house. I have to tell you, it's really not a pleasant feeling to do, my Heather. I had to wait a long time, and when night fell and the man was fast asleep, I acted. With the knife that I intended to end my life with, I used to end his life. Just one neat cut across the neck. He was already awake. But I was reckless. He's not a decent man. Before he died, he frantically clung to me, scratching me so hard, my skin bled. I watched him convulse, struggle, and suffocate in his own blood ocean. Before he grasped the last air, he still dared to ask me who I was. And I said,
I'm your lover, Heather Gray.
His blood splashed on me, got on all over my body, my face and hands. I felt disgusted, so I burned him and burned his house. Don't worry, police couldn't find me for now. I felt better after this, but still not completely. I was still missing something. It was you. I needed you. The plan would never be complete without you. You say, my love's burning for you. It's not enough. Well, I burned him for you. I burned you, and I burned us, because I know that's the only way. Heather Gray, I'm burning everything just for you. Now it's enough, right? Now we can be together, right? I'm gonna ask you again. Will you be my Valentine?
Hi, my name is Noah, and I'm 10 years old. At this age, I'm supposed to hang out and party all day. Yet, my parents are a bit overprotective. They still hire a babysitter to watch me 24/7. Her name is Evelyn. This week, my parents are on vacation, so it's just me and Evelyn at home. Since my parents are not home, I have the whole house for myself. I've been laying down on this couch playing PS4 for what seems like hours. What? It's already 9 o'clock? It's strange. I don't even see Evelyn around. I still haven't had dinner yet. My stomach grumbles. Playing the game is more exhausting than I thought.
Evelyn?
I called out, but no one answered. Did she go out without me knowing? I guess I'll just have to make my own sandwich. As soon as I set foot on the ground, the electricity in the living room goes out.
Great timing.
I mumbled to myself. In the area where I live, power surges during this season are not uncommon. I guess that's the cause, which means I'll have to go downstairs to the kitchen to turn the power back on from the power box. The room was pitch black. I used the walls to guide me. I reach out my hand, reach out the kitchen. It's strange when I notice how quiet the house is. I don't hear the babysitter's radio or even my dog barking. All I can hear is the sound of my feet against the floor.
Evelyn, are you here?
I called out to Evelyn, just wanting something to break the silence. No response. She must have sneaked out to hang out with her boyfriend. As I got closer to the kitchen area, I noticed a strange scent that smells like raw meat. But it's natural for a kitchen to smell like meat. I tried to reason to myself, letting out a nervous chuckle.
Here it is.
I flick the switch. The lights blaze on, and I'm blinded for half a second. My eyes quickly adjust to the brightness, and I stop in horror at the sight that beholds me. God!
What the hell is this?
Lying on the floor behind the kitchen island is Evelyn. She was lying on her stomach, but her neck turned completely to the left at a 90-degree angle. Her eyes looked straight into my face. Red tears flowed from the corners of her eyes. She lay in a pool of blood. Around was a circle drawn in red ink. I trembled and drowned in fear. Suddenly, I heard footsteps approaching me. It's pretty close. Although I'm not even sure whether Evelyn is still alive or dead, the first thing the 10-year-old boy does is run to his bedroom and lock the door. I covered the blanket and lay there shivering. A second, 2 seconds, and a minute passed. Nothing happened. I called my mother, and after that, I was so tired that I fell asleep without realizing it. The sound of footsteps grew louder, louder. Someone opened the bedroom door. I woke up. Turns out it's just a nightmare. I heard the car engine outside the window, then the door opening. Mom is back with the police. In the end, all they found was a plugged-in PS4. The kitchen, the floor were empty. There was no sign of Evelyn or the circular bloodstains I described. I felt guilty, yet relieved. Maybe I was playing games for so long that I imagined that all. I apologized to my parents and went to my bedroom. As soon as the light came on, I was once again frozen. From the door, there's a set of bloody footprints that circle my bed, and then disappear under it.
I had been close friends for a long time. We shared a lot of things in common, especially hanging out and eating. Until one day, we both agreed that we needed to lose weight for a healthy and perfect body shape. After a while searching, Kira and I discovered a yoga studio commercial that promised to help yoga practitioners get slimmer and stay in shape. That seemed to fit our demand at that time. So we enrolled for both. The yoga teacher, John, was a 30-year-old good-looking man with a toned body.
Yoga can do everything.
Indeed, he was right. After a period of practice, we could feel the change so obviously. Fitter, slimmer, and much more confident. Since I thought a course was enough for me, I decided to quit, but Kira didn't. She grew a big interest with this place. She wanted more challenging yoga poses and often stayed late to practice with Master John. Gradually, I could see her body become very sexy in tight training clothes. She often uploaded yoga poses on Instagram. Lately, Kira had been busy with her yoga classes, so we didn't see each other as often as before, and she couldn't even arrange time for a meal with me. One night, Kira video called to tell me that she was trying the Yoganadhrasana, aka yogic sleep pose.
It's a really, really difficult yoga pose,
Kira said. But I noticed that she looked so different. Something seemed to be wrong. Her eyes were sunken as if she hadn't slept for days. She looked emaciated with many bruises all over her body.
It was yoga.
Mr. John must have forced her to practice a lot for this yogic freaking sleep pose. Then I found out that John asked Kira to practice every day, even though she showed signs of overworking.
Like, he's obsessed with him.
Kira sighed.
If you're too tired, you should take a break from yoga for a while,
I told her.
I can't. I poured a ton of money on it.
But she seemed to give away more than just money. All was for a desirable body, and I could completely understand that. After that, I did not see Kira nor hear from her for a week.
She must be practicing with Mr. John,
I thought.
But she could at least update something on Instagram.
I checked her account and didn't see any new posts other than a photo taken at the yoga studio with John. Another week had passed, and she hadn't even texted or answered my phone. Perhaps she was so obsessed with yoga. So one day, I decided to go to John's yoga studio. I pushed the door open. At this time, the studio had quite a lot of practitioners. I looked around, but I could not see my friend anywhere.
Here you are, sweetie. Want to start over?
It was John.
I'm looking for Kira. She didn't reply to my messages.
After a brief silence, he replied,
Kira is doing yoga in her private room. Do you want to have a look?
I said yes. I was so curious about Kira's training and how much she had progressed in the last few weeks. John took me to a separate room behind the studio outside. He opened the door and I stepped in first. Suddenly, I felt a hand from behind. It covered my mouth with a towel that smelled so strange. After a few seconds, everything slowly faded away. When I woke up, I found myself lying in the middle of a very dark room. There was a horrible smell. As I was trying to get up, I tripped over something and fell forward. The small light hanging in the ceiling suddenly turned on. I blinked several times due to the dazzling light, and when my eyes got to normal, the scene I saw made me scream for fear. It was Kira, but her limbs were twitching and contorting in a weird way. I realized it was the yogic sleep pose, the super hard yoga pose she always told me about. But her whole body was cyanotic and gave off a decaying smell of corpses. I threw up all my breakfast. Suddenly, the door behind me opened. John came in with a baseball bat in his hand and gave me a weird smile.
Have you seen my work? Do you want to achieve what your bestie did? I can help you.
I was panic-stricken. I didn't know what to do, but backed away until I hit the wall. Master John approached me, step by step.
Let me help you have a nice body shape.
I woke up to find my limbs were stuck. I couldn't move. My whole body was in pain as if my bones were broken into hundreds of pieces. I couldn't breathe. With a mouth filled with cloth, I could only cry in despair. And my ex-teacher, John, was standing there taking a burst of photos.
Such a nice pose. Very nice. Can even bring danger to a whole plane. Well, I witnessed that once, and I don't want that nightmare to happen a second time. It was a summer day in June. After a year of hard work, I decided to treat myself to a trip to Hawaii. Traveling alone was something so fun, especially when you're an introvert. I checked in just in time to board the plane. When finding my seat, I was annoyed to see someone sitting there already. Some minutes later, the flight attendant approached and asked me to settle down, so I had to walk over to my seat.
Excuse me? I think this is my seat. But I don't like to sit near the window, so I prefer this one. But the seat is on the ticket. I don't think we can change. But I don't want to change it. Any problems?
Because of her loud voice, everyone turned back and looked at me. I was so embarrassed that I forced myself to sit near the window. After the plane took off, that woman took off the mask, while the flight attendant asked everyone to wear masks during the flight.
Hey, why did you take off the mask?
She glared at me with red eyes.
What's the matter? Why are you so nosy?
Never mind.
But then I decided to report this.
Can I go to the bathroom for a bit?
The woman reluctantly said.
What a disturbing thing.
I moved out and went across the restroom to the cabin. I wanted to inform the flight attendant about the woman's behavior. That made me very uncomfortable. After listening to my report, the flight attendant went to talk to her. But you think that was all? Not so easy. The Karen yelled.
I just took off my mask for a snack.
Is there any need to be so strict?
Then glared at me. The flight attendant turned to me.
Is that true?
I hesitated for a moment, then shook my head slightly. The flight attendant looked at the woman.
Would you mind putting the mask back on now? But is it a big deal? I only took off my mask for 1 minute. Why are you so unreasonable? But it's the rules, so I ask you to strictly follow it. Do you want me to die? With the mask on, how can I breathe properly? I'll sue you! Madam, I ask you to sit down and stay calm, and then put on your mask.
The woman suddenly grabbed the flight attendant by the collar.
I don't like masks! Can you understand it?
I stood up and tried to stop her, but to no avail. The woman then pushed the flight attendant aside.
What would you do to me?
The other people seemed so panicked. The woman got her face close to the attendant. She seemed so mad. Then she suddenly turned around and pointed at me.
You're the one who did this!
She rushed over to me and picked me up by the neck. I was so scared, I could hardly breathe. My whole body was drained of strength.
It's you!
The woman then pushed me down on the seat and took my mask off. Fortunately, at that moment, the flight attendant appeared in time and tied her up with duct tape. With the help of another flight attendant, they tied the woman to the chair and dragged me out. My whole body was shaking, my heart was still beating fast, and I felt short of breath even though the flight attendant kept reassuring me. After the plane landed, the police quickly showed up. The woman kept screaming at them and ended up being handcuffed off the plane. Well, it was the scariest flight of my life, and now every time I see someone like that woman, I get chills. I wish you a happy traveling season, and to never get into the same situation as I did.
My best friend Lisa was a wonderful person. This horror story I'm gonna tell you didn't happen to me. It happened to her. Unlike me and our friends back then, Lisa had no financial support, so she had to help herself. She had to do all sorts of part-time jobs to pay the bills. This was starting to interfere with her education and her social life as well. This really wasn't working out for her, so she started looking for smaller sort of side hustles online. I didn't know much about the website aside from the fact that it was known for adult content and pretty much every Instagram girl had one in their bio. Lisa bragged to me that she could make hundreds of dollars just by taking pictures. Men were thirsty enough to just drop money on a picture of her feet or a picture of her crying. Of course, from time to time, she also gets some weird requests from customers, some asking her to hold a hair clipper or demanding her to cry while tearing her fishnet tights. Out of curiosity, I registered an account, recharged to follow Lisa's account. I was really shocked. I warned her that it was a bad idea. Lisa was blown away by the easy money that my words no longer mattered. Some weeks later, I noticed something was off. Lisa was absent from her class, more frequently than ever. More strangely, Monday was always a fixed date for us to meet for lunch at the school canteen, but Lisa didn't even show up. I called her a few times, but got no response. At the end of the day, I decided to contact her parents' house, but they said they couldn't reach her either. When I checked my phone, I found out that she hadn't even been online since 2 days ago. Having a bad feeling, I called the police and reported Lisa as a missing person. The police finally got a warrant to search through her apartment, but when they looked through there, they saw no traces of any violence or that anything could have happened. A week, a month, and a half a year have passed. The police still have no clue. No one knows whether Lisa was alive or dead. Her parents are devastated, so am I. But I still pray for Lisa every day. And I believe she is in a much better place in the real world. A year has passed. It's not until now that I can finally let out a sigh of relief. It was a genius plan. I left her body in the basement of an abandoned farmhouse about 100 miles from the city. It's her fault. I couldn't bear the thought of her exposing her flesh and skin to such strangers. Not me. If Lisa hadn't been so stubborn, if she just deleted the damn account, things might have been different.
The Game of Chance event at the newly opened Starbucks store downtown. Although Elena and I arrived very early, the area in front of the store was already packed with many people. Everyone wanted to be the lucky owner of the prize, which was a limited edition cup. While waiting for the host, Elena and I each ordered a cup of coffee. It was good as always. After a while, the event started.
Dear customers, now it's time for me to draw the name of the luckiest and only guest to own this most beautiful cup. Who will be the lucky one?
That cup will belong to me.
Looking at the cup from afar, I silently wished that my name would be called. If I didn't win it, I thought I would negotiate and buy it back anyway.
And today's lucky customer is a guest named E-L-E-N-A, Elena! Please step onto the stage to receive this special cup.
Elena jumped for joy. I didn't know why, but while smiling at her, I was also a bit uncomfortable. On the way back, I asked to hold the cup for a second. But what she said got me so mad.
I'll never give it to you, Jade. That would also transfer my luck to you, and I got none left.
I went crazy and told myself that I would do anything to get that cup. At this moment, a truck came from afar. Elena was so happy about the limited edition cup that she didn't even notice. I was about to push Elena away, but in a flash of a moment, I thought about the cup and her arrogance, and so I just glared at her. The car crash sounded right next to my ears. Elena was now under the wheel of a truck. The Starbucks cup rolled out and stopped at my feet. I picked it up.
This has to be mine.
I turned to Elena and then ran off. The ambulance arrived shortly thereafter, but Elena was no longer breathing. After Elena's death, the entire Starbucks cup collection belonged to me.
Elena, if only you hadn't said those words, you wouldn't have taken that.
After moving to a new place and getting rid of Elena, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. But things didn't last long. That night in my sleep, I heard Elena's voice. I woke up with sweat on my forehead in the dark room alone.
Maybe it was just a nightmare.
I thought to myself and tried to get back to sleep. During the following days, the same nightmare kept coming. I just closed my eyes and Elena's image appeared. After a few days of insomnia, my eyes were dark. I had to keep taking sleeping pills to get a full night's sleep, but nothing changed. That night when I fell asleep after taking some medicine, the image of Elena appeared outside the door.
Chicky, you tried to push me. Have all of those cups. Give me back.
tried to sit up but couldn't move.
No, it's not.
I struggled in despair. Elena squeezed my throat tighter. Just when I was about to suffocate, I was able to get up. During that night, I was so scared that I couldn't sleep anymore. The next morning, I collected all of Elena's cups and took them home to her parents. I wanted to tell them everything about how I knew the truck was coming but did nothing. But before I could say anything, Elena's mother cried and told me how Elena wanted to give me the cup for my birthday to surprise me.
Oh, Elena.
After hearing Elena's mother's words, on the way back home, my mind went blank. Suddenly, in front of my eyes was a girl holding a Starbucks cup with a happy face. Crossing the street, a high-speed truck was coming from afar. I didn't think much before screaming out and then running to push the girl away. But before I passed out, the last image was Elena's face smiling.
I work part-time in a local pizza shop as a delivery guy. It was Saturday night. My colleague had an unexpected break, so my boss asked me to cover his shift. Around 11 p.m., I got an order to the house on the side of the forest. This place is literally out of nowhere. It doesn't even show up on GPS. Well, it took me 45 minutes to get there. It was a rustic wooden house. Dang it! I took the pizza to the porch and rang the doorbell. I waited for a while, but no one appeared. So I rang the bell again. When I was about to call my boss to cancel the order, I heard footsteps in the house and the door opened. A well-dressed man stepped out. He just stood there, saying nothing, staring dead at me. Sorry for the late delivery. Anyway, here's your pizza. You don't need to tip me. He just stood for a moment, then flashed a weird smile.
Okay, thanks for the pizza. Would you like to come in for the birthday party?
I didn't want to come in and was about to refuse, but he continued.
My daughter's party. Being bullied, no one came. Hey, if you feel uncomfortable, I totally get it.
Poor this girl. I was in the same situation before, so I understood that feeling. I agreed to join the party. I followed the man into the kitchen. The house is so old that I can hear the wood floor creaking with every step. In the middle of the kitchen is a large dining table placed in the middle of the room. I was looking around. Suddenly a voice shouted from behind, startling me.
Happy birthday!
Seeing my cut face without a drop of blood, he seemed apologetic, joking.
Sit here and wait. I'll go call her.
5 minutes, 10 minutes passed by. No one showed up. I walked around the dining to discover that there was a door in the corner of the kitchen. Being curious, I peered in. Oh my God! I saw someone in that 10 square meter room. Although I couldn't see his face clearly, I recognized the uniform. It was a pizza uniform, exactly like the one I was wearing. He was strapped to a chair and almost motionless. What's happening? I called out, "Hello? Are you okay?" At this moment, the man slowly raised his head. His mouth was glued. He made gurgling sounds. I froze. It was Jack, the colleague that was supposed to cover this shift. I noticed his pant leg was crushed. Blood from there was still dripping onto the floor. I have to help Jack. We have to get out of here right now. But then I passed out. When I woke up, it was already dawn. The rain outside has also stopped. Happy birthday music resounded throughout the room. In front of me was a lot of food. The man was chopping something on the cutting board. My body went numb. The pain ramped up. Jack, where's Jack? Why did you do that to him? At this point, the man didn't move, but his head slowly turned back. He calmly smiled and said, "You did nothing wrong. I just have a different taste in food." This time, I
felt the pain in my knee hurt. Burning. So bad.
Huh?
for the coffee junkies. It's all about my cousin Wild, who announced that he loved coffee more than anything else in this world, especially Starbucks. He said that 2 cups of coffee a day is a must, or else he can't stand the entire day. I thought that it would be fine at first, until one day, Wild became out of control. That day, I went to Starbucks for an espresso before going to work. There was a long line of people already, so I had no choice but to wait. Well, it looked like everyone was tired on Monday morning. I could tell that based on their grumpy faces. When it was my turn, I asked for an espresso, but before I pulled out my wallet, someone crashed into me so hard I almost fell. It was Wild, my cousin. After not seeing him for a long time, I didn't expect such an awkward encounter.
Hey! Where's my coffee?
Wild raised his voice.
Sir, please wait a moment.
A Starbucks employee named Bruce replied gently.
Bring it to me! Right now!
I was quite surprised to see him acting like that. Wild used to be so gentle and a kind man. This was the first time I had seen him so angry. At this point, Wild totally lost his patience, slamming the table, then grabbing the employee's collar. Bruce looked so confused as Wild insisted that his order was ignored. Shelby, the store manager who was notified of the incident, rushed to the counter.
Sir, may I know your concerns?
Wild pointed at Bruce's face and said to the manager,
This stupid dude forgot my order!
Bruce shook his head and looked at Shelby. Shelby gently asked Wild,
Sir, what did you order?
Go and ask your silly staff!
Wild yelled. Bruce pulled Shelby to a corner.
This man has finished the 7th cup. That's too much.
Give me the coffee!
Wild still screamed.
Sir, please calm down. It seems to be a misunderstanding here. Could I invite you into my office?
Shelby politely walked over to the guest.
No, just bring my drink here, right now!
Everything got worse when Wild refused to leave and the customers in line started to get impatient.
Hey, Wild, stop it!
I murmured, but he didn't seem to recognize me at all, which was so weird. At that time, another guy in Starbucks uniform walked out with my order. I was about to get the drink, but Wild was faster. He grabbed the hot cup and shoved it in Bruce's face. Bruce screamed in pain, clutching his face, which was now burned by the heat of the coffee. Oh my God! The espresso I ordered was extremely hot. Everyone was shocked. After doing that horrible thing, Wild stood panting with an empty cup in his hand. The manager immediately called 911 while others helped Bruce with first aid. Wild was still angry and kept glaring at Bruce with hatred.
That stupid rat forgot my order!
Wild returned to his seat after I dissuaded him, but his displeasure was still evident on his face. Bruce's burns were severe. Shelby allowed him to skip the shift to see the doctor. In the end, Shelby had to offer to compensate Wild. Even so, he still grudgingly took the cup and went back to his seat. The coffee cups were brought out to Wild one by one. He drank each cup in a single gulp, but that wasn't enough.
Bring me more! More!
His eyes quickly turned bloodshot, and he growled at Shelby. No one dared to stop him because he was still holding the porcelain cup in his hand.
More! More! More!
He just laughed and yelled. He kept drinking until they brought him the 10th cup. It didn't matter if it was iced or hot coffee. He just chugged the whole cup right away. It seemed he had lost all taste and sensation.
I want more coffee! I want more coffee!
He laughed as he grabbed Shelby, shoving the entire cup of coffee into her mouth. Even though the cup choked her, he still tried to force Shelby to swallow it. She would be suffocated by his damn actions.
Coffee! Coffee!
Wild had gone totally insane.
Wild, stop it!
I was terrified, rushing to stop him, but he just pushed me away. At this moment, the police promptly appeared to intervene.
Coffee!
Even when he got caught, he didn't stop screaming. Wild was taken to the hospital for neurological treatment soon after. The Starbucks store also banned him. Bruce quit his job because of the shock, and I haven't seen him ever since. 1 week later, Wild's condition was improved, and after hearing what happened, Wild didn't recognize himself anymore. As for me, after that incident, I switched to drinking tea instead of coffee, especially chai tea. Vanessa took a deep breath. The last time she was in this class, the students, including one named Nick, pranked her with snakes and scorpions to expel her from the class. Even so, the principal didn't agree to change class for her, for the reason that the homeroom teacher hadn't returned to work. The kids started to gossip right after she stepped in, like they weren't expecting that this substitute teacher would return. Vanessa put her bag on the table, tried to act like it was nothing, and started her lecture. The kids seemed to be scared after getting a warning from the principal. They didn't chit-chat in the class or make fun of Vanessa anymore. During her lecture, Vanessa didn't notice the staring eyes and mischievous smile from the kid named Nick. Nick's evil smile showed up when he saw the stone hit the window. The sound from the window got Vanessa's attention. She went to open the window and look down, but she saw no one. At that moment, Nick suddenly appeared right behind her.
Miss Van?
Said Nick. Vanessa looked at Nick warily, with her back facing the window.
I'm really sorry for the prank. I didn't mean to scare you at all. Here's a gift for you.
Nick handed the beautifully wrapped bow tie gift, smiling sincerely. Vanessa was very surprised. She hesitated. This naughty boy really meant it. So she took the gift.
Open it up,
Nick urged. Vanessa didn't want to disappoint her students, so she unwrapped the gift. A black snake came out, terrifying Vanessa to death. She stepped back, unsteadily reaching out for Nick. He almost gave his hand to her, but then it pulled back. And so Vanessa fell out the window. The loud sound startled everyone who heard it. The whole class was shocked and rushed out to the window. Vanessa lay on the cement floor. Red blood quickly spread to an area. Her mouth moved and her body twitched slightly. Before passing out, she saw Nick by the window still looking at her and said,
Gotcha.
Vanessa was taken to the hospital. In front of the school board, Nick insisted that Vanessa fell on her own. Besides, no proof of Nick pushing the substitute teacher was found, so he easily got away with his prank. Even so, he deserved an adequate punishment for it. A month later, Vanessa hadn't returned, and all the students believed that she was so scared that she gave up her job. At this time, the class had been over, and Nick had to stay to do the cleanup. He carried a bucket and a mop in one hand, whistling a melody. The sound echoed in the hallway, causing Nick to stop whistling. He looked around but saw nothing but an empty hallway. The light suddenly flickered. Nick's eyes were wide open, for he saw something at the end of the hallway. It was a person with a high heel on one foot, bare foot on the other, wearing blood-stained white clothes. The person's head was down with loose and long hair. That person had the same outfit as Vanessa. The light turned off and on again. That person disappeared. Nick rubbed his eyes frantically, but still, he only saw an empty hallway.
It's impossible. She's still in the hospital.
Nick confronted himself as he kept walking. Laughter echoed through the air, startling Nick. He immediately turned around. At the end of the hallway, there was Vanessa's ghost. This time, Nick could see her face clearly, blood pouring from her eyes and mouth, falling onto her skirt, staining her white shirt. Nick got panicked. Vanessa had come back for his life. Nick quickly ran out of the hallway. He was truly scared. The footsteps still echoing panicked Nick even more. He ran down the stairs but bumped into the ghost and tripped several times in fear. Nick ran up the stairs to the exit, gasping for breath. When he raised his head, Vanessa's bloody face appeared in front of his face.
Boo!
No! No!
Nick screamed. He jerked backward and then slipped. He fell upside down the stairs. His arms and legs are bent terribly, blood pouring from his nose and mouth. With excruciating pain, blood quickly splattered on the floor. The person was approaching Nick. He couldn't move his arms or any other part and could only stare blankly at Vanessa approaching. Vanessa wiping the blood from her mouth, coldly looking at Nick lying on the floor.
Gotcha,
she said. Then she stepped over Nick's body, leaving him lying in his own blood.
A few years ago, I was in a bad place. My guardian had kicked me out after graduation. I was so worried since I couldn't afford a place to stay at the time. A friend noticed and offered a place for me, since he has an empty room at home. I agreed. Looking back now, I wish I had just stayed in the street. He is a lovable guy, so his friends come to hang out often. Over time, they started to stay with us for longer periods of time, sometimes weeks. His friends were another group of brothers named Joe and Will. The big brother, Joe, is such a nice guy, while the younger one, Will, had a list of mental problems. He believed in the occult and anything of that sort. He would often look me in the eyes and tell me he could see how I would die. Once he even told me that I was possessed by a demon and I needed my soul cleansed. I never really believed in that stuff. Obviously, I was always looking over my shoulder and locking the door of my room. However, I forgot once. It was the day I had my night shift. I was so exhausted that I went to bed right after I got home. About 2 hours later, I suddenly felt something wet on my face. I tried to ignore it and convinced myself it was just a dream. After a while, I felt the wind blowing strongly against my face from nowhere. Feeling itchy, I opened my eyes to check time. The view made me tremble inside. It was Will. He was putting his face very close to mine. His face going wild and crazy. Turns out what I thought was a dream earlier was his drool and breath. I jumped up and pushed him hard. "What the hell is wrong with you?" His body shook like crazy. He couldn't stop muttering, "Demon, demon, demon." The next morning, I told everyone about that. They all knew he had these problems, but he was their friend. They helped him through the hard times and gave him a place to stay. Otherwise, he would be on the streets. I was always on guard around him after the things did to me. No one else seemed to be as concerned as I was. They should have been. One day I was sleeping and my phone rang. It was my boss. He asked if I could come into work an hour early. It was only 12 p.m. I was broke and needed to save money to get out of this house as soon as possible, so I said yes. I walked out into the living room to see my friend Joe sitting on the couch, while Will sat on the floor by the TV. I said goodbye and left for work. It was 5 p.m. when my shift at work was almost complete. When I was about to leave, a policeman approached me. "Hi, this is the police. Something happened at your apartment today and we need your support." I had assumed one of the brothers had been arrested for something illegal, but I was very wrong. The officer then informed me that Will had stabbed and killed his brother and my friend at around 1 p.m. I was shocked. I had just left the house an hour before it happened, and everything seemed fine. Our apartment was a crime scene, so I went to another friend's house to watch the news reports since the police wouldn't give me any information on the case. Over the next couple of days, the information began to be released. Will hadn't just stabbed Joe once, not twice, but over and over, and nearly decapitated the bodies. And my poor friend, he tried so hard to escape from that manic, but unluckily, he was bleeding to death. Will was caught hiding in the bushes near where I worked. I watched the news report in horror. We had known he was unstable, but this? He hadn't confessed anything, but the police found his notebooks. He thought we were possessed by demons, and this was the only way to free us. And my name? It is put in the last, except...
Dan has been a big fan of Chuck E. Cheese ever since he was a child. He often watched horror stories on YouTube about Chuck E. Cheese chain stores. Sometimes those stories were told to be based on a true story. And of course, he was always curious to find out if those stories were true.
It's nice to be here late at night. When the machines are down and families are gone, you can get a Chuck E. Cheese token.
Dan stood in front of Chuck E. Cheese restaurant, looking at his phone with anticipation. He looked around carefully while forming in his head a plan to sneak in there at 3 a.m. In the YouTube video he was watching, there was a reference to the Chuck E. Cheese token. The video owner claimed that he found it in the management room thanks to an animatronic. So the plan was set. He must find an animatronic. After a while, Dan got to a dark hallway. He suddenly felt like someone was watching from behind. Turning around, Dan was startled to see the Chuck E. Cheese mascot standing there. It looked old and very strange with its round, fat body and dirty fur. Thinking it was the restaurant's staff, Dan cautiously took a step back. The mascot also stepped toward him without saying a word.
So weird,
Dan thought as he squinted at the moving creature. His heart was beating fast, and his mind was trying to come up with as many excuses as possible, just in case they caught him. And then, the mascot suddenly reached out with its hand toward Dan. Dan reflexively put his hand forward in self-defense, but the mascot had no intention of harming. Dan looked closely into the mascot's hand to see a red hard card with the Chuck E. Cheese logo in there. His eyes widened in surprise.
Don't play at the machines until after dark. Although it's definitely more fun at night, when everybody is already sleeping at home at 3 a.m.
It was true. The rumor in the videos was true. Dan looked at the card in the mascot's hand and took it after a moment's hesitation. Then, with great joy, he thanked the mascot and quickly left. Now Dan was standing in the front of the entrance and trying to figure out how to get in. His watch pointed exactly at 3 o'clock. The door suddenly opened, and the mascot, Chuck E. Cheese, appeared and waved for Dan to come in. He was so jittery, but decided to step inside. The inside of the store was pitch black. All the gaming machines were off. Now then, how to start? But the mascot disappeared before Dan finished his sentence. Dan felt a little scared, but he couldn't quit here. He turned on the flashlight and continued to go deeper. After he took a few more steps, suddenly the screen at the stage lit up to guide the way. His heart was pumping so fast. Finally, it was time to lift the veil about all of this mysterious stuff. He followed the instructions and reached the corridor shortly thereafter. At the end of the hallway was a huge door with a magnetic lock. Dan took out the red card previously given to him by the mascot and swiped it. The door opened.
Yes!
When he stepped through the door, a horrible odor broke out, causing Dan to immediately cover his nose. It was a large room full of gaming machines like the store outside. Those machines looked old with patchy stains and rust, but seemed to work fine. A faint whisper from the darkness startled Dan. He followed the sound. The nearer he got, the clearer the sound was. And when the 4 mascots appeared in the dark corner of the room, Dan was completely petrified. They looked very monstrous and creepy. On the costumes crisscrossed with stitches, the fur was thick, dirty, and messy. There were patches of exposed skin.
Please, help us.
Oh my God! They were all humans! And those were not normal mascot costumes, but real human skin. Someone had sewn patches of skin and fur on those bodies to make them the living mascots.
Let's butter up the pizza with a special butter sauce.
Dan felt a quiver down his spine. When he turned around, Charles the mascot came with a sharp knife in his hand. Dan fortunately dodged the slashes of the knife, but still suffered an injury to his hand. The mascot kept swinging the knife. Panicked, Dan rushed towards the door with all his strength before getting stabbed with the knife. He rushed out of the restaurant, heading forward without looking back. Luckily, he reached the police station before losing consciousness from blood loss. According to Dan's testimony, the police came to investigate the scene. They found the secret chamber and the victims that were turned into mascots. They were the investors who planned to replace the restaurant with a big hotel. The owner was arrested after that. He was the one that wore the mascot. He loved the restaurant insanely. The owner decided to kidnap and punish the investors after they threatened to destroy his restaurant. And of course, he was also the mastermind of the horror story in Chuck E. Cheese 3 a.m. In this story was put in the same situation, and even though she's a grown-up now, she still remembers what happened that day. 14 years ago, on a sunny Sunday afternoon, Sophia and her mother went to Walmart for some groceries. Since Sophia had done a good job helping her mom with housework, as a reward, Mom would buy her a Barbie school bag. Sophia was so excited that she kept singing until they'd arrived at the parking lot. She was happy every time going to the supermarket. It was time to run and juggle along hundreds of parallel aisles.
Sweetie, you shouldn't be running around like that.
Zoe reminded her daughter before giving her the bag she always wanted.
Thank you, Mommy.
The little girl hugged her mother.
Darling, now go to the play area and stay there while I go buy some fruit, all right?
Zoe led Sophia to the play area.
Remember, just stay here. I'll be right back, all right?
And so there was only happy Sophia left among hundreds of toys of all kinds. While Sophia was looking around, a stranger quietly approached her.
Hello, little friend.
Hi.
Sophia was startled, but still replied in a friendly manner.
Where's your mommy?
Sophia didn't answer, but pointed towards the fruit counter.
So, you're here alone?
This man's voice and appearance started to make her stomach turn. Mom always said to never talk to strangers, so she wouldn't say any other words.
Aw, I'm so sad because I don't have any friends.
Sophia suddenly felt pity for him.
Don't cry. I get it.
Sophia gave the man a candy to comfort him.
Ah, thank you, little friend.
Sophia!
Zoe called out her daughter's name.
I'm here, Mommy.
Seeing that the kid was all right, Zoe turned away, continuing to talk on the phone with customers. When Sophia turned back, the man had already disappeared. The man wasn't really leaving, he was observing. Now he was quite sure that the mother wouldn't be back right away. So he returned to Sophia.
Hey, little friend.
Oh, hi.
Thanks for the candy.
You're welcome.
Hey, little friend, I have something for you. This is a thank you gift.
Sophia looked at the beautiful doll with amusement.
So pretty.
She marveled while stroking the doll. Suddenly, she was grabbed.
Sophia?
Zoe returned and her daughter had already disappeared.
Sophia!
There was no answer. Feeling that something bad might have happened, she panicked and ran out to find her child.
Sophia!
It were as though she vanished.
Oh my God! Sophia, where are you?
Zoe went from one toy aisle to another, but couldn't see any kids that looked like hers. She started to regret leaving her daughter alone. As soon as she reached the doll stall, Zoe paused. Wasn't that the backpack that Sophia was wearing before? She ran around to ask for help.
Please help me. My daughter is missing.
Most people just ignored her because they didn't know what was going on. Finally, there was a Walmart security guard standing nearby.
Excuse me. My daughter is lost. Please help me.
She cried.
Please, calm down. I will immediately call the security center to find her,
the guard said.
Sophia!
Zoe immediately ran like crazy to where she heard her daughter. It seemed that Zoe's cries and Sophia's struggle worked. The man dropped the girl and ran away. Sophia ran towards her mother. Zoe immediately hugged her daughter and couldn't help crying.
I'm scared.
As soon as she met her mother, Sophia quickly hugged her neck.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, honey.
The man was quickly arrested. The incident stirred the media for a while and became a warning for mothers not to let their children play in supermarkets or shopping centers by themselves.
Sweetie, I'm sorry. From now on, I will never, ever let you out of my sight.
And Nick met each other at the Camping Lovers Club. Since then, they have always been together. At the end of October 2021, the couple went camping together in a remote and out-of-the-way area to celebrate Jack's new RV.
Are you sure you know the road?
It's been 3 days on the road, but Lucy and Jack haven't arrived at the destination yet. The place is deep in the woods and was barely discovered, so it's quite hard to find the path. "Yeah," Jack said in a certain voice. According to his plan, they would be there in 30 minutes. The luxuriant trees spread out almost to the middle of the lane. It's so dark that it's even harder for Jack to see. Suddenly, both Jack, Lucy, and their belongings go queasy. They've just crashed something very big. Jack quickly pushes the brake. The wheels slip a long way.
What the hell was that?
Lucy screams while Jack sweated with fear. It looks like a human body. Lucy freezes when she hears from Jack. After a while, they decide to take the flashlight to check.
Oh, shoot.
It seems like Jack was right. Under the wheels, they find a long bloodstain. Jack and Lucy follow that bloodstain. 1 meter, then 2 meters. Their hearts bounce faster as they step closer. It's so close now. "I think it's alive," Jack said. At that moment, the body suddenly jumps and scares the couple startled. Lucy heaves a sigh of relief when she finds that the body is a deer, and so does Jack. For a moment, he has thought he would go to jail.
Wait, this deer looks so strange.
Lucy sits down to see the deer better. It seems to be heavily injured before the accident. Its body is covered with blood, and the guts are coming out. The accident can't do that to a deer. But Jack doesn't care. He hastily says, "Let's get back to the van. I can feel that we are almost there." Lucy listens to Jack, gets back to the van, and they start the van. After moving for a while, they suddenly see a strange man who is asking for a ride. Jack slows down the vehicle so that Lucy can see the man more clearly. Gosh, his face is so disgusting. His clothes are like filthy rags. He doesn't even wear slippers. Lucy doesn't feel so well, so she shouts,
"Go, go, go!"
Finally, Jack doesn't stop the vehicle, as if they just keep driving. "Here it is! I told ya!" Lucy is so happy because they finally arrive. The raw and primitive scene is exactly what they expected. Because she wants to save fuel for the trailer, Lucy suggests finding some wood for a campfire. Then they split. On her way, Lucy finds a tattered tent. Sometimes she finds some pieces of dead animals, but she only thinks that it's normal when wild animals can be around here. Soon, she comes back with wood in her hand.
Why is Jack taking so long? That's strange.
Lucy thinks. It's been a while, but Jack hasn't come back, so Lucy decides to rest on the trailer while waiting for Jack. But soon comes the sleepiness. Lucy quickly falls asleep. Lucy has no idea how long she has slept, but suddenly in her dream, she hears someone mumbling and rummaging in the trailer.
Jack, you're back?
Uh-huh. Lucy hears Jack's answers, so she keeps on sleeping. But then, suddenly, after a while, she smells a stench. More wondrously, her face turns itchy and wet. Lucy slowly opens her eyes. What is in front of her eyes is freaking her out. A few centimeters away from her face is a disgusting face. His eyes are glazing over as he's staring at her. His mouth is red and his drool splatters. At this moment, Lucy realizes the itchy and wet feelings on her face were from his licking. Lucy panics. She pushes the man and runs to the door. Lucy runs into the woods. In the dark, she hears the man's steps as he is right behind. Lucy keeps running and running. Suddenly, she trips over something that makes her fall down. Lucy looks around and finds her surroundings sticky, slimy, sloppy. When her eyes get used to the dark, she dazes.
Jack! Jack! Are you okay?
But Jack doesn't move.
Jack?
Lucy looks down. Jack's guts are all out, like he has been ripped off. Lucy is so shocked that she doesn't even realize the psycho has been behind her.
Join your friend.
When she is hopeless, Lucy remembers the knife hanging on the side when she was picking the wood. So, as quickly as lightning, gets the knife and waves it around.
Get off before I call the police!
She seems to hurt the psycho because after that she hears him scream in pain. Then, all of a sudden, Lucy rushes to the RV, locks the door, and drives away. The RV runs on the road, quickly leaving the freaky area behind. Lucy's hands are shaking and her heart is pounding. Her head is full of questions. Who is that psycho? Why did he kill Jack? And at that moment, for no reason, Lucy recalls whispering in her dream. But this time, the sound is clearer than before. Slow down. Slow down. Slow down. Subconsciously, Lucy steps on the brakes, but the vehicle goes even faster. That's when she realizes that she has lost control. The trailer car kept running in her desperation.
An overnight fire claims one life in Escambia County. According to police, crews were called out to the crime scene just before 1 a.m. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. The victim has not yet been identified.
I'm done. Sorry for being late. Before I finished speaking, I suddenly saw a familiar and strange figure. My God, it's Mike. How did he wake up without me knowing? Mike, the guy in a wheelchair, fidgets with the ball and is about to perform a three-pointer shot from the middle of the field. With that posture, I doubted him, but still didn't want to distract Mike, so I gently sat down to watch. Mike gently raised his hand and made a powerful throw. That's a great throw. Just by then, the ball went straight into the basket like everything was programmed. It fell to the ground, but the resounding sound was a bit off, strange and creepy. I don't know why, but the ball doesn't bounce like a regular basketball anymore. Now that I noticed it, it was a human head. A bald head. God, that's the coach's head. I can't believe what's happening in front of my eyes. Mike, my best friend, murdered the coach? Terror stabbed my heart. I couldn't move even a single finger. Mike seemed to sense my presence ever since because I heard him saying, "Kyle, what about you? Why are you hiding the fact that you're the coach's son?" It can't be. Why does he know that secret? We never said a word about it. How could he know, he said. My naive Kyle. I was not in a coma the whole time. You didn't know that, did you? Just then, I remember sitting next to Mike's bed, talking on the phone with my dad, who's also my coach. Yeah, it worked. He hasn't woken up yet. But, Dad, I didn't know you wanted to take his legs just for this.
Day of my life. What an exhausting day.
There was a groan from somewhere outside the store. Lucy cautiously peeked out to see. It was a ragged homeless man. He was staring at the frozen meat counter. His mouth was drooling. His bloodshot eyes were wide open. His hand slid across the glass, which made a creaking sound. Lucy timidly asked,
"Sir, how can I help you?"
But he didn't say a word. just let out annoying, heavy breathing. Looking at the thin man, Lucy sighed softly.
He must have been starving for a long time.
There was brief news on TV about some apartment break-ins in the area, but Lucy didn't care much because the apartment complex she lived in had the best security. Suddenly, Lucy received a text from her roommate saying that she wouldn't be home and telling Lucy to lock the door carefully.
Never mind. Enjoy the night.
Lucy put the phone down on the table and looked up at the clock on the wall. The shift was finally over. She locked the door to check the goods before the next shift coworker arrived, holding up a cold piece of meat. Lucy was startled by a strange noise. She turned around to find that the homeless man was still there. He licked his lips and smiled at Lucy, and then he kept banging his head on the front door like crazy. She staggered backward and slumped under the counter, while the bangs grew louder, until she heard the sound of a key being put into the lock and the door slightly opened. Lucy quickly grabbed a pen from the counter and stood up. The person who just walked in was David, the co-worker on the next shift. "What's wrong?" David saw her panic and felt a little confused.
Didn't you see anyone at the door?
No. Anyway, what the heck is this? Ew, that's disgusting. David looked at the glass, frowning slightly. Lucy shivered when she saw the stain, but it seemed like he had already left. The clock struck 12 o'clock, so Lucy hurriedly let David take over and quickly went out the door. She comforted herself with the thought that maybe it was just a weird customer at night. Just then on the street, there was almost no one passing by. She walked along the pavement under the yellow, dim lights. Lucy heard the annoying rustle of slippers. She turned her head to squint at every corner of the empty street, but no one was there. So she continued to walk, but after a few steps, she stopped, still hearing footsteps whispering in her ears. She looked back. It was just herself on the road. She walked faster. The rustling appeared again, seemingly speeding up like her. This time it came along with a whistling sound. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, and sweat soaked her uniform. She kept walking without daring to look back.
It's almost home. I will be fine.
Lucy reassured herself, but couldn't stop her body from shaking uncontrollably. The sound of footsteps running after Lucy became louder and more urgent. She ran up the stairs, but she was so panicked that she tripped. She suppressed the pain, picked up her things, and ran as fast as possible. Finally, Lucy frantically put the key in the lock.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
The man was so close. Footsteps and rattling of the stairs drew nearer. The whistle echoed throughout the dark corridor.
Please, please!
She finally got the key in the lock. She turned the key, rushed into the house, and slammed the door. The man also rushed in at this time, only a split second before he was able to catch Lucy. She closed the door and locked it, then gasped for air, slid to the floor, and began to cry.
"Open the door, you little rat! Open it!"
The man banged on the door and shouted, his hand constantly tugging at the doorknob. Lucy was panic-stricken and stepped back. Suddenly, everything fell silent. Lucy raised her head, trying to crawl up to the peephole to look outside. Suddenly, he jumped out of nowhere to meet Lucy's eyes. Knowing he couldn't do anything here, the man licked the peephole on the door and left. When there was no sound anymore, Lucy shakingly cracked open her door and stared out.
"Hey!"
The pervert pressed his face to the cracked door, so close that his drool splashed on her face. Lucy was frightened and stepped back. The crazy man turned the doorknob like crazy.
"Open the door!"
he shouted as he banged on the door. Lucy was shaking as she dialed the phone.
It's 911. What's your emergency?
Please help. Someone is trying to break into my house.
Hold on. We're on the way.
The man heard what Lucy was saying. He stopped pounding the door and left. Lucy leaned on the door, sobbing, her whole body trembling with such
police have recorded a total of 4 brutal murders in the past week. The common pattern in those cases is that the victim's head was cut off and brought away. Police are expanding their inquiry.
Mommy, can you stay home today?
Those words raised in Avery a sense of guilt for making her own daughter worry. She kissed the kid on the forehead.
Be good. Stay at home and take care of your sister. I'll come home early today, I promise.
Then the mother left home and began her workday. Avery was an Uber driver. That was a busy day, and she had to spend almost all day on the road. Very soon it was getting dark. There was a shortcut, a small path through the forest, which Avery always took to get home faster. When she just passed through the long tunnel, the Uber application informed her about a booking customer. But anyhow, she didn't accept this ride because she promised her little daughter to get home as soon as possible. It was past 11. Avery pressed the gas pedal. Lowering the window, she enjoyed the cool breeze on her face. When she just passed through the long tunnel, the Uber application informed her about a booking customer. In a moment of carelessness, Avery was startled when someone jumped out of nowhere in the middle of the road. She instinctively hit on the brake. The car lost control, and everything turned upside down.
Oh God, did I hit someone?
Avery was frightened. She tried to strain her eyes to see clearly, but there was no one on the street. Suddenly, she saw an arm from the outside reaching into the car and grabbing her shirt. The bloody hand was shaking so badly. Then a man showed up. It was the man who jumped out into the middle of the road.
Let me in.
Gosh, his whole body was covered in blood. His clothes were like rags. Perhaps this was because Avery hit him with the car. She quickly unlocked the car door to let the man in. In just a few more miles, Avery's car suddenly shook violently and she had to stop. The passenger also got down from the car to see the problem.
A nail? For God's sake. Doggone it.
Avery's tires, which had been pierced with some sharp spikes, were now flattened. The man standing nearby came up to her and said,
Well, if you don't mind, I have a toolbox with me. It's in the back seat.
Avery rejoiced slightly. She told the man to check the condition of the tires while she got into the back seat to get the toolbox.
Hope he has pliers,
she told herself while opening his bag. But the moment Avery opened it, she was shocked to look at what was inside. There was a bunch of nails whose shape was exactly the same as the ones embedded in her tires now. Next to it was a bloody axe and a saw blade.
What took you so long?
Startled, Avery quickly closed the bag. At the same time, the man got into the front seat and closed the door. She tried to act normal.
I think I should get out of the car and wait for the rescue squad to come.
Avery was surreptitiously dialing 911 and managed to open the car door. The man looked at her, smiling expectantly. That's when she realized the car door was locked. That creepy man, who had been watching Avery in the rear-view mirror, suddenly leaned backward and asked,
Did you really call the rescue team?
Avery was startled when she realized the man's face was very close, perhaps inches away from hers. There was something so monstrous in his smile. His wide eyes and jagged yellow teeth made her nauseous.
What do you want? Get out of my car now!
Avery tried to sound calm. The man gasped for breath and said,
But it's dangerous outside. Don't make me go there. I'm scared.
Then he laughed like crazy while raising his hand forward to strangle Avery. Just then, a dispatcher picked up the phone. Avery was feverish and accidentally touched the speakerphone button.
It's 911. What's your emergency?
The man was startled when he heard the voice on the phone. When he was caught off guard for a second, Avery pulled a hammer from the toolbox to defend herself. She used all her strength to smack him on the head, but the hit wasn't strong enough.
Well.
Avery swung the hammer wildly but was soon restrained. The murderer grabbed her hand and snatched the hammer, which made her fall backward. She fell on the toolbox, and all the things inside fell out. It turned out to be a human head, a horrifying scene Avery would probably never forget for the rest of her life. The blood that oozed from it soaked the bag, dirty and pungent. Suddenly, Avery remembered the breaking news earlier.
So, maybe you found my little secret. But I don't want you to see it at all. So what should I do now? Tell me.
Please, I'll keep my mouth shut. I swear to God, please let me go.
Avery got even more petrified when she thought about her children. But that cold-blooded killer didn't heed her pleas. He laughed while approaching his prey. And then, hammer blows came crashing down. Her painful scream, overwhelmed by the sound of hammering, tore up the still air in the deep forest. Blood splattered everywhere, and the madman was extremely amused. He was overcome with pleasure watching his victim lying in blood. Avery fainted, tears streaming down her face as she thought of her daughter come home. Sleepy as she was, she hurried downstairs to meet her father. But something was odd. Daddy was not as happy as usual. He staggered up the stairs, glared at Elsa, then stepped straight to his room and slammed the door. While walking across her parents' room, Elsa heard an argument. This wasn't the first time her parents had had a quarrel, but this time Daddy seemed strangely violent. Worried about her mother, she immediately pushed the door and ran in. Daddy pushed Mommy down on the bed and yelled at her. He was acting like a monster, which made her so scared to step back. At that moment, she remembered her teacher's words.
Whenever you're in danger, call 911.
No time to think. She quickly grabbed the phone on the table and ran out of the room, leaving the insane father there with her mom.
Please!
When the ringing tone of the call connection rang, she prayed silently.
911, where's your emergency?
The dispatcher quickly picked up the phone.
Please, help! I need help!
She sobbed.
We're coming. Just don't hang up. Don't hang up, okay?
The dispatcher reassured her. The quarrel became more and more serious. Elsa panicked even more when she saw her parents starting to struggle and push each other. She sat in the corner of the room, covering her ears and crying in fear. The mother broke away from her abusive husband and quickly ran towards Elsa.
Aw, shoot! Where do you think you're going?
The potted plant was shattered. Her mother was lying on the ground, moaning in pain. Her right arm was broken and twisted, and the white bone was sticking out. Elsa and her younger sister were hiding in the closet. They sat still for so long until getting quite sure that their father wasn't around anymore. Elsa was about to get out of the closet.
Boo!
The father suddenly opened the door. Elsa's mother, from behind, swung the lamp at the father's head, giving him a blackout sudden enough to throw Elsa away. Her mom seized the chance to bring the two daughters out of the house, headed straight for the car, and locked it from inside. The father, holding his bleeding head, chased to the car.
Where are you going? Where are you going?
The angry man banged on the window. After hugging two little daughters to reassure them, the mother started the engine. But as soon as they drove away, the father suddenly jumped in front of the car. Mom braked sharply. She ran out of the car to find the father lying on the ground, rolling over in pain.
Bastard! You kill me! I gotta kill you too!
The father was still trying to scream. In the mother's hand was a rock from the lawn, and her eyes were filled with hatred.
No! Mommy!
Elsa stopped her mom before she did something unwise. The mom couldn't hold her tears as Elsa was also crying. She hugged her daughter, sobbing and crying.
Dad, please stop! It's me, Elsa! Your little Elsa!
Elsa turned her head toward her father. When he saw tears on his daughter's face, he realized something.
Oh, my poor Elsa.
Now he was wide awake.
My father is bleeding! Please come and help!
In the little girl's hand was still the phone which was connected to the dispatcher.
Don't worry, Daddy.
Elsa wiped her tear as she was looking at her father. After the incident, Dad had completely changed. He didn't even touch a drop of alcohol. The house was once again full of joy and happiness.
Hey, honey, we're back.
Afraid she would run away,
Wow, the suitcase looks so big.
I said. The previous guests, even if they rented the house for a week, did not bring a huge suitcase.
Maybe they are careful and always carry the necessary things with them.
That night, I was woken up by a constant ringing of the phone. But when I picked up the phone, there was no response other than a gasp. And then total silence.
Who is that? Hello?
I kept asking but got no answer, so I hung up. But then the phone kept ringing. Once again, I picked it up to find no response from the other end of the line. It made me angry.
You bastard! Call me again and I'll kill you.
Then no more calls in the night, so I could eventually lay down and quickly fall asleep. I hadn't seen Iris out for 2 days.
Maybe she's sick.
The next morning, Tim called to inform me that he would check out before the schedule due to personal reasons. I was quite surprised to see that Tim paid the full rent for 4 days and 3 nights. Before leaving, Tim sent a message to thank me and gave me a 5-star.
What a gentle guest he was.
I thought. Until 3 p.m., I decided to clean the apartment to prepare for the next guest. When I opened the door, a strong odor hit my nose.
What's that awful smell?
I frowned slightly. It was a bit surprising to me because this guy wasn't as neat as he seemed. The inside of the apartment looked normal. The tables and chairs were scattered, but not as dirty as I thought. But the smell was still strong.
It can't be like that.
I hurried forward and cleaned the bathroom first. That smell was even stronger.
Unbelievable!
I shook my head, feeling absolutely disappointed. On the floor, behind the tub, something yellow came out.
The stench is definitely coming from there.
I approached. As soon as I saw the thing behind the tub, the smell made me nauseous immediately. Oh my God, it was so horrible. The thing inside that plastic wrap gave off a disgusting smell. I couldn't do anything but keep myself away from that bag.
Hi.
A voice from behind startled me. That was Tim.
I forgot some stuff, if you don't mind. I will go now.
I nodded fearfully while my heart was still beating fast. Tim passed over me to pick up the plastic bag without noticing its horrible smell, then quickly left.
Send my hello to Iris. I wonder where she's been lately.
Tim looked at me and smiled cryptically, then nodded. After cleaning the bathroom, I moved on to the living room. I turned on the TV while cleaning around so that the work went smoother.
Breaking news. At 7 p.m. last night, police reported a barbaric murder in Smithfield in the dumpster of an apartment complex. The victim is a girl named Siri, 23 years old. The body was dismembered and locked in a suitcase. The head hasn't yet been found. The suspect was described as a 25-year-old man who was seen to be with the girl. If you have any information, please contact.
The doorbell rang, so I got to the door and peered cautiously into the peephole. It was Tim again, but he was even more monstrous than before.
I think I dropped my wallet somewhere. Would you mind if I got in to find it?
Tim said.
It's okay. No worries. Anyway, did you hear the news about a murder?
At the very moment when I hit the doorknob, something in my mind popped up. The victim's name was Siri, and Siri was the reverse of Iris.
The streets are full of scenes like this, though the cause of the pandemic is undefined. The victim seems to transform after being bitten. While the treatment is being made, please stay home and wait for rescue.
Oh my god, it's coming! It's coming! Run! I'm a top student of a famous medical school. I spent most of the time studying with Mr. Drake at a lab. It's a classified project about inventing a new virus that increases human strength and speed. Half a month ago, we almost solved this complicated math problem after 7 years of studying. There it is, this virus that can change the whole humankind. We burst into happiness, but then Mr. Drake and I had another problem. We needed volunteers. Since this was illegal, my teacher paid homeless people to join the experiment. Whatever might happen to them, nobody would care. That's what he thought. Well, speed and strength are increased, but the brain activity is significantly damaged. They're ferocious and can't remember their names. I reported this to Mr. Drake after prototype analysis. He contemplated for a minute and said, "We've got to cancel the project to find the cure." Do you mean all our effort is for nothing? Despite my worries, Mr. Drake did it anyway. In the next 2 weeks, he locked himself in the lab, and when he came back, he had a formula for the cure. We pumped it into those homeless in different concentrations, then observed. However, things didn't follow the plan. Their illness got so worse that they escaped from the lab, except for a man named Eric. No, that can't be! It's supposed to work! My teacher screamed in pain when Eric, the half-human, half-zombie creature riding on the floor. That's it. Our last experiment failed. At that moment, a zombie outside seemed to scent me and Mr. Drake. He slammed into the door and wheezed. Its drooling was so disgusting. I was wide awake, sputtering hurriedly. We must end Eric's life. Release him! Meanwhile, my teacher was too upset to care about anything. I freaked out. I held a sharpened table leg nearby and slowly came to Eric. He seemed to scent danger and get more and more violent. His disfigured face, bloody eyes, and sharp teeth wanted to tear me apart. The table where Drake tied Eric was shaking like it was about to burst. The rope could not hold him for longer, so I needed to hurry. Suddenly, Eric bowed down and did something weird to his arm. Eric? Did the cure work? No, it can't be. Eric, he was biting his arm. The skin and the arm started tearing apart. Pieces of muscle and flesh splattered everywhere. Suddenly, his arm fell down to the floor, and he rushed to me. Under a sudden attack, I could only raise my arms to prevent Eric from attacking. His stinky breath and wheezing breath were so close, just some inches away from my face. I tried to push him, but it didn't work. After the transformation, he had reached the level of strength and speed that humans could not reach. He was closer and closer, and I closed my eyes, nearly giving up. Suddenly, Eric fell down. Mr. Drake gave Eric a shot right to his head. He fell onto me. His brain splattered. His fluid splashed all over my face, and I could even smell it. I pushed Eric aside, got rid of the blood, and stood up. My teacher stood dazedly in the corner. Are you okay? If it were not for him, I would probably end up like zombies. The thick layer of blood stuck to my skin and made it very difficult for me to get rid of it. Thank you, I'm okay. Just as I finished my words, I noticed a small bite on my left arm. My heart jumped. Oh no, Eric bit me while we were fighting? Drake seemed to know what was happening because I saw the changes on his face. No, that can't be. I can't be infected. But then my body went cold. My blood was boiling and I could feel pain all over my body. I saw Mr. Drake step closer. He tried so hard while slowly aiming at me. I'm so sorry. You don't deserve all of this. No, please don't. I want to live.
The authorities have taken things under control. As reported, the cause of the pandemic is from the lab of X University. However, when the defense team came, there was no life found.
My name is Vanessa. I'm a full-time employee at KFC restaurant. This wasn't my favorite job, but it was my main source of income, so I guessed I had no choice. My boyfriend and I lived in a shabby apartment. Most of the time, our dinner was the leftovers I brought from work. Things seemed to be fine, until one night. It was a Saturday night. The restaurant was incredibly crowded, so I had to work from the morning to late night. While I was cleaning the table, I noticed a new customer sitting at a table in the corner. He was frantically waving at me. I thought he wanted to order, so I went toward him. He turned out to be a mime artist and he was grinning. "What would you like to order, sir?" I gave him the menu, but this guy just stared at me and started performing like we were in a play. Looking at his gestures, I guessed he wanted chicken and fries. Something about this guy made me feel uncomfortable. With that plus the fatigue, I couldn't keep polite manners anymore. "Here's your chicken." His smiling face distorted in an instant. He stood up and did some boxing moves. I was too tired to say anything back, and that seemed to make him angrier. He raised his hand to make a shooting gesture. "If you don't order anything, then just leave," I mumbled. His face darkened. He put his hands behind his back and slowly moved toward me. I thought that was an attack, but it turned out he was trying to stab me with an imaginary knife. I admitted that this silly trick startled me for a second, but it didn't make him less ridiculous at all. So I grabbed a random imaginary rock and threw it at that jerk. He frantically dodged and ran out of the door while clutching his head. That stupid reaction made me burst out laughing. Today was not too bad for me. When my boyfriend Mark came to pick me up, I told him about the mime guy. We laughed and talked all the way home. When we got to the building and walked to our apartment, I saw someone dressing as a mime artist in a hidden corner of the hallway.
"You okay? Are you tired?"
Mark handed me a chicken thigh while seeing me bewildered. Probably the mime guy. Even so, I wouldn't be afraid of him because he was just a freak. For the next few days, I went to work in the morning and got the leftovers home at night as usual. It started snowing outside. After leaving work, I didn't see Mark waiting for me as usual. I tried to call him, but he didn't pick up the phone, so I got mad at him and walked home without him. As I reached home, I rushed to bed and fell asleep right away without even changing my clothes. The doorbell woke me up. I reluctantly went to the door to see through the peephole. I recognized Mark by his green beanie, but he was standing with his back to the door, maybe with something surprising. I opened the door, mumbling, "Did you forget the key again? Where have you been?" But that person wasn't Mark. That was the mime guy with the white painted face. I just looked at him in shock. He took off his hat, bowed to me, and grinned again. Then suddenly he saw something. He slipped past me and went straight to the KFC chicken bag on the table. What the hell is going on? He took the chicken out onto the table, then rubbed his hands together as if he were very hungry. He picked up a chicken thigh and began to devour it. Then suddenly he stopped chewing. His eyes lit up as if catching up with a new idea. He turned to me and made a gesture of enjoying the fries and ketchup. I couldn't keep watching this jerk burst into the house and eat Mark's food without permission. I jumped in and yanked the food out of his hand.
Get out! I called the cops!
His face darkened and he acted as if he pulled something out from behind his back. I still thought it was an imaginary knife, so I grabbed it. I could feel the pain and blood started to flow out. The sharp blade of the knife stabbed in my hand, but it wasn't enough for him. He kept stabbing me with the knife, but I managed to dodge. I ran out of the room, terrified, while that crazy man chased me right behind. I rushed into the elevator and frantically pressed the close button. The moment he was about to hit me again, the elevator closed and the knife fell right in front of me. I crouched in the corner. Couldn't believe such terrible things had happened to me. When the police arrived, the only thing they found at the messy scene was a bloody knife with no fingerprints. A few days later, they found Mark's body buried in snow near the KFC restaurant. The mime's identity was never found. After that, I quit my job and never even dared to step into any KFC again. For many nights, I woke up startled and saw in the corner of the room, there was that freaky mime holding a bag of KFC chicken and smiling at me.
My brother saw a ghost as a kid. 10 years later, I realized what he actually saw. So I was about 8 years old. My little brother was about 5. We lived in a fairly sparsely populated area since our dad worked construction out of town back then. It was often just 3 of us at the house for weeks. One summer morning, I went to my brother's room to wake him up for breakfast. That summer was quite hot, so everyone was drenched in sweat. But my brother was still covered with a blanket. Pulling off the blanket, I saw my brother's back was wet. His face was white and sweaty. When I asked him why he was covered in blankets in the middle of summer, he turned grumpy and said, "It's a secret. I can't tell you." To my surprise, I went down to the house to ask my mother, and she said that this situation has lasted for nearly a week now. That night, a hailstorm appeared out of nowhere. Since we were both excited, Mum let us stay up later than usual. It was well past our bedtime when our mum woke up off the couch to put us to bed. My brother and Mum both had a habit of waking up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. I only knew this because I was always a light sleeper, and they just couldn't help flushing with the door wide open. This night, however, my brother stopped on his way to his room and came back towards the bathroom. I'm going to try to pee before I go to bed. The past few nights, I've been too afraid to walk to the bathroom. After a while of asking what scared my brother so much, he finally told me to bend down, then whispered in my ear, "Our house is haunted." Ignoring my cowardly expression, he continued, "That night, I thought it was Dad, so I approached him, but it was a mistake. There was a ghost with wild white eyes and was always dressed in orange. He said he won't harm you and Mum if I promise not to tell anyone. But I broke my promise." I was terrified by it. The fear of seeing a ghost like that at the end of the hallway or through the windows is the reason I started running from the stairs to my bedroom at night. After the summer vacation ended, my brother didn't mention it anymore, and I forgot about it too. Years later, when I was about 18, my mum and I had a conversation while we were on the run. We were sharing stories about Max's tendency towards destroying my shoes and other unruly behaviors when my mum blurted out, Do you remember that time I opened the front door for the cops and Max ran inside to the kitchen and started tearing open that big bag of dog food we had? This really caught me by surprise because in all the years I lived in that house, we never once called the cops. I asked her what she was talking about and she looked equally surprised, as if she had just revealed something by accident. Oh, that's right. I never told you because you were too young at the time. And this is what my mother told me. On the day of the hailstorm when I was 8, my house was broken into by a stranger. That night, she got up at 3 a.m. to go to the toilet. As soon as she came out of the room, my mother suddenly heard a noise in the kitchen. She looked down from the stairs and saw a dim shadow. Mom was extremely scared but still tried to keep her eyes open. Suddenly there was a flash of thunder, lightning through the window, allowed her to see the face of that person. And at the same time, he was startled and looked up the stairs, his eyes meeting hers. Those wild eyes haunted my mom for many years. My mother quickly grabbed the phone and carried my little brother into my room, locked the door, then immediately dialed 911. She couldn't remember all the details she gave them. A tall white man wearing a faded orange suit, something like that. Police said my mother's description matched the description of a man they were looking for in the area. It turns out he had escaped from jail on a murder charge. Now, I know it sounds so obvious hearing those two stories back to back, but it wasn't until last night that I pieced everything together. Both my mother and I, we never knew that my brother had unknowingly warned us about a murderer who spent multiple nights casing our home. What my brother saw was not a ghost or an imaginary figure, but a murderer that stayed in our house for no one knows how long. And since my brother broke his promise, he actually could kill us at any time. Maybe that night, he did plan it. Maybe that sound my mom heard from the kitchen is that he was finding a knife to kill all of us.
Brittany, Valerie, and Allison were a group of close friends who went to play escape room, backroom version. In this version, players didn't have to discover clues or solve puzzles to find the exit, but they would experience the levels via VR glasses. Different levels had different frights that the girls had to face to find the way out. After taking 3 pills of cardiotonic from the game instructor, they put on the VR glasses. When Brittany opened her eyes, she found herself in a yellow hallway filled with an annoying musty smell and absolute quiet. Picking up her walkie-talkie, she gave it a try by calling her friends.
Hello? Val? Alice, do you hear me? Yes. All right, girls, let's rock.
Brittany walked on the deserted hallway. There was nothing but her footsteps. She had passed many turns, but hadn't found anything else along this empty hallway.
Where's the door?
I found a door. Pity girls. I'm winning this game.
Valerie said in the walkie-talkie. Brittany seemed a bit impatient because Allison soon also found the door to the next level while she was still in the same spot in the empty hall. Suddenly, she saw a monster ahead in one corner. Startled and scared, Brittany decided to turn into another cross, which was just an extension of the hallway so far, with boring yellow walls, the musty smell, and the mildew. The walkie-talkie had lost its signal for a while. Now, being totally lost in repeated space, Brittany started to get impatient and fatigued. Brittany was startled and looked around. Still that empty and humid hallway, but there were footsteps echoing, and they became louder and louder. Seemed like a creature was moving faster and faster. The only thing Brittany could do was run away from that thing. But the more she tried to run, the louder the footsteps became. Lonely and terrified, she became more panicked. Finally, she found a door in front. That must be the exit. No time to think, She rushed to it, and at the very moment when she twisted the doorknob, something touched her back. Brittany sat down for relief and then tried to call the others.
Alice! Val? Anyone hear me? Alice! Val!
That was Allison's voice.
Alice? Are you okay?
Allison sharply exhaled. It seemed that she was met with something terrified there.
Bree! Val is dead!
Allison bursted into tears. The news squeezed her heart. The walkie-talkie lost signal again.
Alice? Alice!
There was no reply, and Brittany, once again, was left alone. She needed to find Allison. The footsteps echoed in the hallway. Brittany immediately recalled the memory of the monster, so she kept running and running. The moment Brittany looked back, a black shadow ran into her and made her fall to the ground. The feeling of pain ran through her body.
Bree!
Luckily, that was Allison that bumped into her. The two girls were delighted.
Let's get out of here.
Finally, there was a door at the end of the hallway. But before they reached the door, a black shadow ran into Allison and made her fall down.
No!
Brittany screamed when she saw the sight. She couldn't feel her legs anymore, and she just kept shivering in fear. The man in black costume turned into Brittany. Having no time for tears, she rushed to the door. When she opened it, a bright, lighted space swallowed up her whole body. Brittany woke up, panicked, and looked around. There was still the room with the green screen, but the two chairs were empty.
Allison? Valerie?
They've gone already.
The game instructor suddenly appeared from the middle of nowhere. Brittany checked her phone.
They didn't wait for me then.
On her way home, she was still scared of what happened. Then she was startled when she found the bloodline on her shoes. The memories of the hallway eventually...
It's a dreary winter day. I stand in front of my treasure, the Harry Potter collection, while sipping a cup of coffee. This familiar scene reminds me of what happened 10 years ago, when I was just a 10-year-old kid, being a boy who loved to explore things. My best friend at the time was Ronan. Being a die-hard Harry Potter fan, I just called him Ron. And since we're so close, I considered myself Harry as well. Interesting, right? Ron and I loved going to the train station after school. Back then, I always believed that the barrier between platforms 9 and 10 holds the secret entrance to the magical platform 9 3/4, which of course could lead us to Hogwarts. There was a man who often sat at the corner of the railway platform, wearing a cape, like a witch's costume. One afternoon, I noticed a young boy approach the old man with a wand in his hand. "Hey Ron, do you think he's an employee of platform 9 3/4? "No idea." Ron's dusty answer disappointed me. I stopped talking to him, turned to see the empty corner. The old man and the boy with the wand were no longer there. Oh no, I lost track of them. I came to the railway platform, but still, I found nothing. It's dinner time. We need to go home. After that day, Ron and I were stuck in the house for a whole week due to the heavy snowfall. As soon as the weather improved, I picked up the phone and called his house. "Hey, come over. We're gonna go to the station. Don't forget your wand." By the time we got there, it was already dark. Only a few people were passing by. We stood in a familiar place, tried to find the employee of platform 9 3/4, but that day, he didn't sit in his familiar corner. Ron stared at me in the confusion, so I had to reassure him.
If you want to be a witch, you have to trust me. The other day, I saw that man took a boy to Hogwarts. That boy has a wand, just like us.
Then, Ron and I approached the place where the man usually sat, but it just made us more disappointed. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew up from nowhere. It brought goosebumps to the back of my neck.
Bruh, is that Azkaban Dementor or something? I don't know, but let's go home. It's getting dark.
I ignored Ron's words and tried to linger. A few minutes passed. From the darkness suddenly appeared a shadow, a thin and tall body. Oh my god, it's definitely Azkaban Dementor. In the distance, he was dark and threatening. A few seconds later, the shadow approached us and began to show its face. Underneath the cape, I saw ragged clothes. His face was terrifying and gave me nightmares for years. And in his hand was not a magic wand, a bloody knife. He smiled sinisterly, revealing jagged yellow teeth.
Run!
Ron yelled.
No! I spent my whole life preparing for this.
And then loudly chant the incantation.
Expecto Patronum.
Yet nothing happened. The man almost caught me. While my legs were wobbly with fear, Ron grabbed my hand and we ran as fast as we could.
Idiot. You want to die? Run!
Just then, I tripped and got my feet stuck in the railway tracks. The madman was still standing over there and laughing. Oh my god, that's it. Am I going to die like this? My fear spiked. I frantically waved my wand to hope for a miracle. The train was already very close that could hit me in any seconds. When I'm about to pass down, Ron ran down and managed to free my leg. He made it out before the train cut through and left the madman, who was still laughing, wildly behind. That night, when Ron took me home, my dad got really mad. He thought I sneaked to the train station without asking his permission. Turns out his concerns are well grounded. During that week, the news had spread about the disappearance of boys my age. In the most recent case, the boy's mother said that after she lost her son while refueling at a gas station near the railway, and the common thing between the boy and the other victims is that they are all Harry Potter fans.
Horror story that haunts me until today. 10 years ago, when I was a 17-year-old girl, my mom asked me to babysit the neighbor's kid because they had to go to a party. Well, of course, I couldn't say no to her. However, the kid that I was supposed to babysit was 16 years old. His name was Tyler. He suffered from an intellectual disability, and people said that his mind was like a 5-year-old.
Hi.
I tried to be friendly, but Tyler gave me a really frightened glance. I mean, really frightened.
Goodbye and enjoy the party, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson.
I waved my hand as I closed the door. There were only me and Tyler in the house now.
So, I'm Tammy. Your name is Tyler, isn't it?
But Tyler didn't care at all. He only focused on finishing his painting stuff.
Tammy, could you please turn off the TV?
Okay. What are you painting?
I was curious. Tyler still didn't answer.
Can I join too?
Tyler nodded his head instead of saying a word. So we were both coloring and painting our own works of art.
Are you hungry?
I asked. Tyler nodded while painting attentively.
I'll make you something. What would you like to eat?
Up to you.
Tyler mumbled. So I went to the kitchen and prepared some sandwiches which were Tyler's favorite. When I came back, Tyler was no longer painting his picture. He was sitting there and mumbling.
Go out? I can't
Mommy won't let me. Can I? Where are you? Really? My babysitter?
Tyler? I was a bit freaked out, though. After hearing my voice, he stopped mumbling.
Here, your sandwiches.
Tyler ran to the kitchen before touching the food. I guessed he was getting his favorite orange juice. At that moment, I had a closer look at the picture on the table. I guessed it was Tyler in the picture, but there were two of them in the same clothes. One looked normal with a smile, and the other, gosh, he had two scary dark eye sockets that gave me goosebumps. I ran quickly to the kitchen. Tyler was standing still, and there was broken glass pieces on the floor.
Don't move, Tyler!
I rushed to clean the mess. Meanwhile, Tyler was still standing emotionlessly, like he was a mannequin.
Tyler! Tyler!
I shook his shoulders in panic. I didn't scold or blame Tyler for breaking the glass, as I thought it was a harmless mistake. However, Tyler seemed a little bit different, like he wasn't himself anymore.
Tammy, TV remote!
He suddenly turned to me. That was the first time he looked me straight in the eyes, and I could feel the cold shiver running down my spine.
Sure.
There was news about a serial murder on TV. It was Tyler who was giggling at the news.
Tyler, you okay?
I was a bit freaked out now.
Yeah.
He replied without even looking at me.
Should I change to a cartoon channel?
I reached out to get the remote. He quickly gripped my wrist.
If you touch it, I'ma kill you.
He said, cold-blooded. I quickly pulled my hand back. There was something strange and scary about him. Not only did he watch the murder news calmly, but he also ate a lot of snacks, which I was told was what he hated the most.
Tell me, bring me milk. Milk. Milk!
Okay.
I went to the kitchen to get the bottle of milk. While I was pouring the milk into the glass, something just popped up in my mind.
Tyler, you're lactose intolerant, aren't you?
My body was frozen when I saw Tyler standing in the middle of the room.
She knew.
No! Don't hurt her!
Shut up! You got to kill her.
Tyler!
Tyler turned around, staring at me with his dark eye sockets. In his hand was a sharp knife.
Tyler, where did you get that?
I stepped back. Tyler didn't hear my voice anymore.
Tyler, drop the knife down.
I tried to keep calm.
No! No! You have to die!
That voice wasn't Tyler's anymore. And before he rushed over with the knife, I ran quickly outside and locked the door. I tried to call Mr. and Mrs. Wilson in a panic, realizing how frightened I was. They immediately left the party and called 911. When Tyler's parents came home with the police, Tyler was back to normal. No one believed me, no matter how many times I tried to explain. Even though 10 years have passed now, I still couldn't forget what happened that day. The day Tyler, the neighbor kid that I babysat, was replaced by his evil and cruel personality. Aggressive and entitled, she pushed the staff away and went straight to the counter.
Hey, what happened to your ears, mashed potato and fried chicken?
That woman said. Ma'am, you're not wearing a mask. We can't give you food, said my colleague Ryan.
What are you saying? I said I'm hungry and I need food immediately!
She ignored all the things we were trying to say. Suddenly, she climbed onto the counter and yelled at Ryan.
Make me something to eat! Do it!
She threw things around and just stood there screaming at Ryan. That was when I stepped in. Ma'am, please calm down. She turned to me.
I will stab you! Bring the mashed potatoes and chicken over here!
She screamed, then scratched her own face. God, I thought she'd gone crazy. We can't do that because you're not wearing a mask, I tried to explain calmly.
I'll stab you now! Bring the food here!
The woman waved her arms and cursed with a defiant attitude and her terribly scratched face. She ignored all my words and yelled loudly.
Get me that goddamn food!
That woman was so angry that she kicked the menu on the table. You must wear your mask. The angry woman cursed at me with vulgar words and then jumped off the counter.
This restaurant is disgusting! You're disgusting!
Then she stormed out. After the crazy woman left, we all sighed in relief, though I hadn't gotten myself together yet. This was the first time I'd seen such a Karen in real life. We didn't want that kind of customer ever again, so I just quietly cleaned up everything and went back to work as usual. When my shift ended, I packed up my things and went home. On the road, sometimes I could feel the footsteps behind me, as if someone were following me. But every time I turned around, there was just me and the empty street. So weird. I mumbled and walked faster. I knew someone was following me. Suddenly, I turned around. Sure enough, someone hid as soon as they saw me. I swallowed hard, clenched my fists, determined to find out who they were. So I walked very slowly towards the alley. Karen jumped out of the alley and ran toward me. Fortunately, I caught her hand before she could stab me. Oh my God, she was so strong.
I told you I was hungry. Don't you understand?
The woman growled. She was crazy. Her eyes were bloodshot. Her mouth was drooling as if she wanted to eat me alive. She pushed down the knife. Luckily, I dodged to the side just in time. I pushed her away, but she wouldn't stop. That crazy woman took the javelin towards me and took one bite. I struggled to push her away.
That tastes good.
This woman was a psycho.
Please, calm down.
I held back the pain, trying to convince her.
Go to hell!
But she didn't listen. She clutched the knife and pounced on me.
You!
She shivered, laying on the ground, blood flowing from her stomach.
It was your fault!
I was so scared, and my mind was a mess at that time. I didn't know what to do.
Help me!
She moaned. I was so scared that I left the woman and ran all the way home. All that night I couldn't sleep well. I wished all these things were just a dream. The next morning, the police arrived at my door. Only then did I know that that woman last night was discovered and taken to the emergency room in time, so she was not in danger. And even though she stabbed herself in the stomach, I couldn't help but blame myself. God, if only I had served her food at that time.
Enjoying the spring fair is the annual tradition of me and Luna. So here I am, waiting for her at 3 p.m. to celebrate 2022. This year, my friend is wearing a crop top, short skirt, and pretty as usual. It was a gloomy day, but my mood lifted due to the bustling atmosphere. Luna dragged me to the Ferris wheel to take pictures. That's when I realized the difference of this fair compared to the previous ones. A Huggy Wuggy mascot was standing near the stuffed animal store. "Do you want a hug?" The mascot stretched out its hand towards us, but Luna scornfully replied, "This mascot is so freaking creepy. Afraid of being heard and judged?" As impolite, I interjected, "Well, but it's pretty cool, don't you think?" The Huggy Wuggy mascot is tall, probably a head taller than me. Its fur, though dirty, seems soft. However, its long red mouth, always smiling, gives me real shivers. "Don't you want a hug?" Suddenly, Luna pulled me towards the mascot for a check-in picture as she said. Then she kept dragging me to the other play areas. After walking a long way, I was pretty curious about the mascot, so I turned back to see it was still in the same position. But the head and eyes were deadly fixed on me and Luna, like it was watching us. Oh, come on, you need to stop watching something creepy on YouTube. Maybe Luna was right. I couldn't let that stupid mascot ruin our day. So that's what I did. I spent a happy evening with my best friend, and we also took a lot of photos. It was already dark when we were about to leave. It's already 7 o'clock. The fair was almost empty, and the stalls were ready to pack up. As soon as we reached the gate, Luna suddenly stopped. "I need to go to the toilet." We drank too much Coke, so it was understandable. Okay, but hurry up, it's closing." Then Luna went back inside. I pulled out the pictures we took in the afternoon to kill time. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes passed and still no sign of my friend. I was impatient, so I called her number. The phone rang, but no one answered. Luna is someone who always carries her phone with her, so that worried me. You must be kidding me. Does she forget I was waiting for her at the gate? I called Luna a few more times, but still got no response, so I went back inside to look for her. At this time, only a few traders were packing to leave. There's only one toilet area in here, but Luna wasn't in it. I walked around a bit to look for it, but still, she was nowhere to be found. As my impatience began to flare, I discovered the Huggy Wuggy mascot was still in the same position, but instead, standing still, it was leaning against the stall. "Hey, excuse me," I called out loudly, even though the mascot seemed to be heading straight for me. It still didn't move. "Excuse me, have you seen this girl?" I showed it the photo we took earlier, but all I received back is the dead silence. Is this just a costume? Thinking so, I gently pushed it, but as soon as I touched the Huggy Wuggy mascot, its whole body fell to the ground. Then I knew what real terror was. The head of the Huggy Wuggy fell off, rolling around. I couldn't believe it. Inside was no one else but the girl I was looking for. Even though her whole body was wrinkled, I still recognized Luna. Her eyes were rolled back and her neck was full of new deep marks, like she had been squeezed so hard until she died. No one knows what happened. I don't know. Neither do the police. The investigation hit a dead end. All they know is that the Poppy Playtime Company didn't invite that Huggy Wuggy mascot to the spring fair, and the picture I took of Luna. In that picture, the Huggy Wuggy was standing behind my friend. Although the head looked towards me, its eyes glanced straight to the left to look at Luna, and still showed a familiar smile.
While I was at the Disneyland entrance waiting for my shift, I saw Bruno, the coworker who just left from the previous shift. He showed me a trending video of Mickey Mouse. "It is said anyone who sees this video will be cursed," Bruno said. Why did people want to self-harm after watching it? I was pretty sure it was just a made-up story from Creepypasta. It was the message from the manager. He assigned me to clean up at Toontown, specifically Mickey's basement. I said goodbye to Bruno and headed straight to Mickey's house. My job was cleaning all of Mickey's basement, including 2 men's and women's restrooms, a small gym and break room. Since there was no one here, the place became creepier than usual. I started my night shift by cleaning the men's bathroom floor. Jesus, these footprints won't go away. I pushed it harder and harder. After a while, those footprints finally faded. It's strange, what were the children playing with to be so dirty? But when I looked closer, they appeared to be too large to be a child's footprint. I continued my shift and headed to the women's restroom. To make the work less boring, I was cleaning the house while humming a melody. A few minutes passed and suddenly I heard a strange noise. Looked like it came from the men's restroom. I stopped and listened carefully, but it fell silent again. Jesus, I must have gotten paranoid from watching that Mickey video. After that, I quickly moved my stuff to the gym to clean up, and I heard that strange sound, but this time it came from the women's restroom. So I called out, "Hello? Is anyone here?" Strangely enough, the sound didn't stop but became louder and louder. My heart beat faster with each step. As soon as I felt that person was about to burst into the room, the footsteps became quieter. What caught my eye was the toolbox in the middle of the floor. Oh, was the box here just now? While thinking, I pulled the crate towards the corner of the room. As I was at the door to take a look around, I suddenly felt a chill on my back. I turned, and immediately my whole body froze. Someone just passed me. From this angle, I could only see the back, but this person seemed to be wearing a Mickey mascot. Is it staff? I called out, Hey, who's that?" But that person still staggered forward. Could it be the front shift worker? I asked again, "Bruno, is that you?" This time I got a response. "Yeah, I forgot something," he said as Mickey's shadow disappeared at the end of the corridor. About half an hour later, I finished cleaning the restroom and was ready to leave. When passing the men's restroom, I suddenly saw that the toolbox dragged to the middle of the room again. How strange. Bruno? You still here?" But no one answered. I looked at the time. It was 3 a.m., 2 more hours until the shift's end. I didn't want to be caught by camera, so I went to a room in the restroom to sleep a bit. Time passed by. As I was leaning on the toilet and dozing off to sleep, I suddenly heard a soft sound. The noise came from the next room. Jesus, I forgot to check the other rooms, I thought as I slowly bent to peer into the next room. Oh my god, there were feet. They're crazily big in size. While I was standing still, those feet slowly turned towards me. Something wet fell on my head. I looked up and froze. That was the head of Mickey's mascot. His eyes stared right straight at me. Gosh, you scared me to death. You still forget something? As soon as I stopped, the Mickey mascot made a high-pitched laugh.
"I forgot this thing!"
he said, and slowly raised a sharp knife, tinged with a bright red, like the color of blood. Suddenly, Mickey's head dropped. I rushed out of the bathroom and rushed to the door. God, the door was locked. I twisted like crazy, but couldn't open the door. With no other choice, I returned to the crate in the corner of the room. At this moment, suddenly the door from the next room opened, and a man in the Mickey suit stepped out, knife in his hand, walking slowly towards me. I have to hurry, I mumbled as I kept looking for something to open the door. Mickey was still laughing like crazy and rushed to me like lightning. Behind me was the wall, so I had nowhere else to hide. He slowly raised his knife and prepared to swing it down. Fortunately, if it weren't for the toolbox, I would probably have died at his hands. As soon as I saw the axe, I quickly grabbed it and rushed to the door. Once, twice, 3 times. Finally, the door opened. I closed it just as the madman got out. I quickly blocked the door with the axe and left that goddamn Mickey basement behind to run to the police station. When the police arrived, the room was all empty. No trace of the Mickey mascot was found at the scene, and strangely enough, they couldn't get in touch with Bruno or even the manager who assigned me to clean in this shift.
I want to tell you a story about my last working day as a teacher. A horrible day that gives me goosebumps every time I think about it. It was 11 in the morning. I was teaching literature in the class. The students were sitting lazily. They didn't seem to listen at all. I got out of class and went to the bathroom. While I was washing my face after a long morning, suddenly the loudspeaker sounded.
Attention! There is a maniac with weapons in the school. Everyone, stay in your classroom, lock the door, and do not come out until getting further notice.
As soon as the bell rang, I rushed back to the classroom and locked the door.
Oh, dear. Did you all hear the announcement? No one is allowed to leave the classroom.
But Lizzie exclaimed,
Miss, I want to go to the bathroom.
Oh no, not now, honey. Can you hold on for a while?
But I don't think I can hold it any longer.
Lizzie pouted.
Okay, let me think. Oh, all right now. You'll run as fast as you can to the bathroom. And after you've done, come back. Knock on the door 3 times. 1 long and 2 short. Like a code. Understand?
Lizzie said with an annoyed face.
Yes, I'll do as you said. Can I go now?
Okay, be careful.
I unlocked the door for Lizzie to get out. While we were waiting, other students started whispering and making jokes.
I've seen it in the movies. Maybe they're just pretend, like a rehearsal, you know? No fool would run into the school.
I told all of them.
Students, this is no joke!
And showed them the message from the principal. Suddenly, the atmosphere became quiet. 10 minutes passed, and I started to worry. Suddenly, the fire alarm went off.
Oh, why has Lizzie not come back?
Suddenly, there was someone knocking on the door 3 times. Exactly the code I told Lizzie. I was about to open the door.
But teacher, what if it's not Lizzie?
It was Dave, the class monitor.
Are you sure it's Lizzie?
What are you talking about? Only Lizzie knows the code.
Actually, I was afraid it wasn't Lizzie too.
If it were someone else, we might be killed.
But if it's the real Lizzie, we can't just leave her out there. But just to be sure, maybe.
And then I turned toward the classroom door and whispered,
Oh, Lizzie, can you raise your hand up to the classroom window so that we can be sure?
Immediately, I saw a raised hand, and it was Lizzie's. I saw her pink-polished nails, so I unlocked the door. But that was not Lizzie, or at least it was not Lizzie who knocked because she was now a corpse in a man's arms.
Hello, teacher. I'm Lizzie.
The man imitated Lissy's voice. All the students screamed. My whole body froze. The psycho then dropped the body on the ground and said, "Teacher, I'm back," and thrust the knife at me. I fell on the ground while my students shouted louder. Just when he was about to pick up the knife and stab me in the face, I raised my hand to stop him. The knife went through my hand. Blood splashed on my face. The madman took the knife out of my hand and Dave jumped out, grabbing the chair and hitting the madman on the head. He fell over but immediately got up.
How dare you, little brat!
He lunged at Dave, stabbing him in the shoulder with the knife.
Let me go!
I was in so much pain that I couldn't stand up to help my students. All the others were too frightened. They huddled in a corner and did not dare to protest. But when looking out the window, I suddenly had a crazy idea.
The classroom is on the second floor. Maybe jumping down from here won't kill me. Then I could go to the police to rescue my students.
So while the psycho was being held by Dave, I tried to move towards the classroom window, and after an inhale, I jumped down. But before I could do anything else, I fainted from the excessive blood loss from the wound on my arm. I woke up in the emergency room. The police reassured me that the other students were safe. The police arrived after that and soon controlled the psycho, but they could not save Dave. What a bad teacher I am. If I hadn't let Lizzie go to the bathroom, things would have been different. If you were me in that situation, what would you have done?
This morning, the body of the mayor's son was found brutally murdered at the Burger King. The killer's identity has not yet been determined. The mayor vowed to make the murderer pay for his crime.
Kyle worked the day shift at a Burger King drive-thru outside the town, and his girlfriend worked the night shift. As usual, Kalia arrived a little early to help her boyfriend clean things up. When Kalia came back after throwing the trash, she saw two shadows appearing behind Kyle. From the dim light inside the counter, she knew it was her ex, Jordan, and his friend. They were both holding weapons, slowly approaching without Kyle even knowing. On the contrary, when Kyle realized his girl was heading toward him, he smiled and waved at her.
Watch out!
Kalia waved in panic to sign Kyle as the men were approaching him, but he assumed that it was just a simple wave. Kyle got choked and fell to the ground. Kalia was scared to death. She ran to the counter hurriedly and frantically. The closer she was, the more terrified she got. Jordan repeatedly hit the hammer on Kyle's body. The sound of the hammer mixing with his cry broke the stillness.
You bastard! How dare you steal my Kalia! You have to pay for this!
He shouted. The friend couldn't even see this, but Kalia had seen it all from the outside. Her eyes were wide open, tears were falling, but her whole body was stiff, too scared to move. Jordan's friend saw her, immediately rushed to the window.
Get her!
Jordan shouted. She was caught and tied to a chair. The friend held her head and kept her eyes open. They made her see everything. They cut Kyle's flesh into small pieces and threw all of them into the blender.
No! Please!
Kalia desperately cried and screamed. Then after a while, she got panicked and passed out in the laughter of Jordan and his friend. Kalia woke up from the nightmare. She was choked in the pain caused by the horrifying memory. Her heart was broken when she knew Jordan wasn't brought into account after murdering Kyle because his father was the mayor. Pain and resentment turned into hatred, and Kalia decided to avenge Kyle. After coming back from the hospital, Kalia locked herself in to learn how to access the dark web from a friend. She wanted to find a supporter for her plan. Her whole body trembled when she saw a video titled "Meat for the Kings" appeared on the screen, showing Jordan eating Kyle's meat in a bun. Her heart broke into pieces once again. She has to kill that monster. Then she finally found someone to help. It was a site named Vengeance Spirits. When Jordan was at the gas station next to the Burger King, he was drugged and taken away by a man wearing a black hoodie and mask. Jordan slowly revived from consciousness, found out he was strapped to a chair inside the Burger King drive-thru where he tortured Kyle. His friend was strangled to death, eyes bulging, mouth gaping. Jordan still had no idea what was going on. He frantically tried to untie the rope. Kalia stepped out from the darkness. Behind her was a man dressed in black with a mask. In Kalia's hand was a sharp knife. You! He started to panic when he saw her. Jordan screamed in pain as the masked man slammed the hammer down his leg. Then Kalia repeated what Jordan did to Kyle, giving him exactly 23 hammer blows to his stomach, chest, and head. Then using a knife to cut a piece of meat on his thigh. Jordan screamed, tears streaming down his face, too much pain to say a word. Kalia brought the bun containing the thigh meat and stuffed it into his throat.
Meat for the kings.
Kalia laughed creepily. Jordan's mouth was stuffed with the burger, and there was only a faint humming from his throat. The whole process was filmed by the masked man, as Kalia requested.
After the investigation, police found human flesh inside the victim's stomach. It seems like the poor man was forced to eat his own flesh, and the murderer's identity probably will never be found.
In front of the TV, Kalia laughed like crazy. She took a bite from the burger with red meat.
Yuck.
She spat it out and threw the burger to the ground.
The tragic death of Mary Martin, a 17-year-old girl, had caused a media stir. The murderer has yet to be identified. Police are continuing their investigation into...
Max turned off the TV and wiped off the tears on his cheeks. His limbs were still shaking. It was an email from Dr. Finn, which included the address of his clinic. Dr. Finn was his last hope of treating his severe insomnia. Max quickly changed his clothes and headed to the clinic. The clinic was located in a rather old residential area, which was difficult for Max to find. There was no signboard outside, which made him a little suspicious if this was a legal clinic. But it took him a long way here, so he didn't want to go home empty-handed. With the tired appearance of someone who had not slept for a long time, he knocked on the door. Dr. Finn was wearing a stained blouse, emaciated, and his voice was muffled. He invited Max to sit down on the worn sofa, then started to ask about his condition. Max said that he had insomnia and always felt very tired. Finn nodded his head, then handed Max a bottle of pills. "This is the cure." Max looked at the white bottle without a label. He frowned slightly and his face was filled with skepticism. "Don't worry, I've cured a lot of people." Finn nodded as he pointed to a photo on the wall in which he stood in the middle. To persuade Max, Finn gave him a 20% discount and one more bottle as a bonus. Max finally agreed to buy the medicine from Finn, then rushed home. That night, Max had a good night of sleep. It had been a long time since he had slept so well. The first week passed well. One night, While Max was sleeping soundly in bed, his whole body felt suddenly so heavy. When he opened his eyes, he saw a black shadow hovering under the ceiling. Max couldn't move, as if his whole body were pressed down by hundreds of tons. That strange shadow suddenly rushed towards him. It was close enough that Max could clearly see its eyes, and its mouth was slightly white. And it was trying to merge with his body. In a second, the shadow got closer and closer. Its legs merged with his legs, then hands. Max kept struggling in horror, but nothing could help him out. The shadow's mouth opened, and there came a high-pitched scream. Startled out of his sleep, he tried to control his breathing, sweat already drenching his body. His limbs were finally able to move again. He must get away from this horrible darkness, but had no strength left.
Police are revealing more clues around the murder of Mary Martin. They are currently locating the suspect and increasing monitoring around the...
Max turned off the TV. Max was exhausted. He looked pale and visibly thinner. His eyes were sunken from lack of sleep, and his hair was messy. But he couldn't reach Dr. Finn. Max had been texting Finn about his situation since last night, but the doctor hadn't responded, and he hadn't picked up the phone either. Looking helplessly at the white bottle on the table, Max's mind went blank. He really needed that medicine. He would die without using it. The next night, he had sleep paralysis again. This time it was even much worse than before. Max heard wheezing in his ears. He even felt liquid drip from the shadow's mouth onto his face. After struggling to regain consciousness, Max took more medicine. While he was drifting off to sleep, he felt his whole body stiffen again. This time, he clearly saw the shadow shaped like a girl wearing a dirty dress. Her neck cut off and throat exposed. Max knew who she was. Mary! 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 Max repeated the name in panic. Mary's ghost moved closer, squeezing Max's neck. Mary's shrill scream rang out. Her mouth opened wide, from which it spewed a slimy mass of fluid and maggots that fell directly into Max's face. Max woke up to find his whole body sweating. He immediately grabbed the medicine bottle from the desk drawer, poured the pills all into his mouth, and frantically drank water to digest them. Soon the bottle went empty. After swallowing all the pills, Max gasped heavily. Suddenly, he felt something wrong. His eyes rolled back. A painful feeling spread through his body, causing him to spasm his muscles. He clutched his throat and felt a hot flash burning his intestines. Max writhed in agony on the cold floor, struggling with a foaming mouth, his breathing even more difficult. After a while, Max stopped moving. He lay curled up, motionless on the floor, with wide, white eyes.
A man has been found dead in his own apartment. Remarkably, this man is the boyfriend of the poor Mary Martin and is also the prime suspect in the murder. According to the police, he was paranoid after
easily became overloaded with the work here. It was probably due to the high pressure at the workplace that people barely talked. After a while, I only knew and talked with two more colleagues, Emmy and Joe. Emmy was my supervisor, and Joe was Emmy's manager.
Jesus. Try to finish this mess. I couldn't contact Joe for a few days. Maybe he died somewhere.
Emmy angrily threw the documents on my table and left. It was already 8 o'clock. She must have been exhausted from taking over all the work since Joe didn't show up. Luckily, our boss was so understanding and kind. Every day around 10 p.m., he usually gave us some brain-boosting water. To me, it was like an elixir. I always felt so awake and refreshed every time I drank it. Since then, it had become my new beverage, despite one side effect. I often lost sleep in the next few days. That day, as usual, I stayed at the company quite late with a bunch of documents. I went outside for a cigarette. While standing next to the exit door, I suddenly heard some strange echoing noises from downstairs. I worked on the 20th floor of the building, and there was barely anyone who came here at this hour. But that sound still stirred up the air. It sounded like someone jumping up and down the stairs. Then came the giggles, so monstrous in the still air. So strange. What's wrong with the janitor? I returned to my desk. Emmy had been off for 3 days already for unknown reasons. It also meant all of her work now fell on me. It was 9 p.m. I breathed a sigh of relief after the work was done. I packed up my things to go home. I hated the elevator here. It never reached our floor since the 20th floor button was broken. So I had to walk downstairs to use the elevator. Suddenly, I heard the same strange noise again. The clattering footsteps on the stairs and the giggles. But it was louder this time, and coming from upstairs, I called out, "Who is it?" The noise stopped for a few seconds, but then it got faster and louder. I saw a figure appear on the dark stairs. It looked like a woman with loose hair covering most of her face. I approached her and asked, "Hello? What's the matter?" As soon as I finished the sentence, the woman slowly raised her head, revealing a wild face. Her eyes were bloodshot, like she hadn't slept in a week. Oh my God! That was Emmy! She was tightly holding a large stapler in her hand, which was covered in a red liquid that smelled like blood. While I was still frozen with fear, she burst out laughing like crazy and rushed toward me. I thought she would jump on me, but no, she kept jumping on the stairs, then burst out laughing again. I was so scared and quickly ran away. After getting in the car, my heart was still pounding wildly in my chest. I saw a crowd gathering in front of the building, but I was too panicked to care. That whole night I couldn't sleep. Even until my alarm went off at 7 a.m., I still couldn't close my eyes for a while. If everything keeps going like this, I might go crazy one day. But I loved this job and wanted to follow it to the end. Emmy still didn't go to work today. Maybe she just gave up like Joe.
A few years ago, I was traveling alone in a little-known place in Texas. I had planned to stay there for 1 week. However, the blizzard brought traffic to a halt, so I ended up being there for almost a month. As a fitness lover, the first place I went to check was the gym. The town was sparse, so it's surprising that there were always only a few people at the gym. I especially loved going to the gym late at night. There was hardly anyone there, so the whole gym seemed to be mine. It was the only gym I could find in that area, so I had to go there even though I found it a bit inconvenient. For example, the manager was always silent. The gym facility was old and gave off an unpleasant atmosphere. It felt like everything was covered with the smell of sweat and no one ever cleaned it up. However, the boxing bags here are of extremely good quality. They were soft, and the level of elasticity was insane. One quiet night, and the gym was empty. I put on my headphones and ran on the treadmill. At some point, I saw a black shadow reflected in the mirror. Every time I turned around, but I saw no one. I thought it was on my head, or else it might be the manager. I kept running for another 15 minutes. But those black figures didn't leave me alone. I felt like I was watched by dozens of eyes. Although I sweated like crazy, my body felt cold. Since I'm a wimp, I've decided to switch the gym time from evening to daytime for the rest of my stay here. On the last day before I left, I went to the gym for the last time. From afar, I noticed crowds of people. The entrance was blocked by a lot of police cars and ambulances. Curious, I asked a policeman standing nearby. He told me not to stay away because it was a crime scene. When I heard this, I was shocked because yesterday when I came to work out, everything was normal. Of course, I inquired further, but received no further information. At that moment, I saw the police escorting the gym manager out. He remained silent, exuding of terrifying and creepy mystery. After that, all the punching bags that I love to use were carried out one by one by the staff wearing protective gear. All were cut open. What the hell is going on? I raised my legs and peered inside. If I could go back to that moment, I'd want to slap myself in the face for being nosy. I wish I'd never seen that. Inside the sandbags was the human body with flesh and blood rotting. Witnessing that terrible scene, I couldn't help but throw up. As soon as I regained my consciousness, I went back to the motel, packed my things, and left that damn place. Later on, I learned the truth through watching the news. Before I came to that city, many people suddenly disappeared for no apparent reason. The owner of the motel was afraid of losing guests, so he absolutely did not say a word to me. My heart turns uneasy every time I think about it. Perhaps that sandbag was so qualified not because it was expensive, but because the sand was replaced by human bodies. And perhaps the strong smell that made me queasy was not sweat, but the smell of fluid from rotten humans. I lived in a dormitory. My roommate was Adam. He is the same age as me, but a head taller than me. I'm a skinny, nerdy college student who likes to spend time online and playing games alone. As for Adam, although he always wore a hoodie, I know for sure behind that shirt was a tall, muscular body. He must have been the desire of many girlfriends. Despite his appearance, Adam is quite taciturn and quiet. We don't talk to each other much. I also respect his privacy, so I don't often ask questions. Like me, Adam usually stays in his room all weekend. He will be out of the house only on Friday night between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. So, it was a Friday night. As usual, when Adam went out, I opened Omegle to meet and talk to strangers. You know, guys like me don't usually get the chance to make friends in real life. After skipping through a few boring chat frames, I stopped. I came across a familiar scene. The structure, painted walls, are exactly the same as the dorm room I was in. However, strangely, in the middle of that room was a table and a chair. He didn't say no, quietly eating the bowl of soup in front of him. Hello, late dinner, huh? No one replied. It was only then that I noticed his odd appearance. Why on earth did he have to eat haggardly like that? He seems to be very hungry, but at the same time, so reluctantly. And if I'm not mistaken, I saw his tears rolling down his cheeks. Weird, I thought. At that moment, another figure appeared. In that dark space, I could only see the person's arm outstretched. He has an axe tattooed above his wrist. The arm kept stroking the boy, but this only made him shiver even more. This must be a joke. I left a message. Freaks, you guys are boring, and left the chat room. The phone fell to the ground, startling me. Looking up at the clock, it was already 2 a.m. I've been asleep since when? I don't even know. Adam was back. Suddenly I thought of the guy eating the soup. Curiosity aroused. I rummaged up and opened my computer to see if the show had ended. Jesus, what happened? On the other side of the screen was a horrifying scene. The boy just now had his face down on the table. The bowl of soup spilled out. A slimy liquid spilled all over the table. What? I glued my eyes on the screen. It's the weirdest soup I've ever seen. On the table was a red mixture. Crammed in the middle was what looked like minced meat. My body shook with fear. I panicked. My whole body, including the chair, fell backwards. It's disgusting. What the hell? Hearing the loud noise, Adam seemed to have woken up and ran to me to ask. I was still breathing heavily, unable to speak, only trembling to point at the screen. That guy, he seems dead. Adam helped me sit back on the bed. Okay, calm down. Tell me everything you know. Wait. This is the first time I've seen Adam not wearing a hoodie. And on top of his wrist is the tattoo of an axe.
Chat with strangers. With just one click, you can meet anyone from anywhere, no matter who they are. But eventually, those ordinary video calls lost their charm. So I made a new prank. Voila! I put the makeup on with a little blood, some bruises, and weird costumes, then sat in front of the laptop and waited. When they got connected, on the screen would appear a girl in a white dress. The light would flash for a while and then turn off. After a few seconds, when the light suddenly was back on, a bloody face would jump in, which definitely would scare the piss out of them. I burst out laughing when my prank made a guy jump out of his skin.
Seriously, dude, this prank is on point,
he said. Their reactions weren't too bad, so I thought I was good at my role, so I gave it a few updates. This time when I opened the video chat frame, there was a guy who was dressed as Pennywise the Clown. As normal, the screen suddenly went black. A scream of terror resounded through the air. A white face covered in blood appeared on the screen, startling the masked man.
Hey, you think this is funny?
The strange man pointed to the screen and said in a deep voice,
"It's a prank. Take it easy, bro."
I frowned slightly.
A prank? Are you an airhead? Do you want to die or something?
He said and jumped toward the screen, and I swear at that moment, he scared the hell out of me. He gave me a snigger and then ended the call.
"Up yours,"
I murmured. After the first failure, I didn't call it a day, so I kept clicking the new chat box. However, the screen showed that man again. What the hell? I told myself.
You again.
His rough voice came out. He was holding a cleaver in his hand. Something didn't feel right to me, so I clicked the new chat box without saying another word. This time was still that freaky man.
You think you can get away from me?
That voice again froze me in 1 second.
Wrong. I know who you are and where you live.
That man was insane. His white eyes opened violently like a dead fish toward the camera.
I will find you and peel your skin and suck your blood and make your hair a wig. I will make you pay for your goddamn prank.
While speaking, he pressed his face closer and closer to the screen. He laughed like crazy, which made me petrified. Needless to say, I immediately turned off Omegle and the laptop. The next day, I went to a Target shop for some groceries. On the way back, I had a feeling like someone was following me. But when I turned around, no one was there. Weird, I mumbled. All I could hear were the footsteps of myself and someone behind me. When I stopped, he stopped. When I went, he followed. Someone was following me. So I suddenly turned my head, but no one to be seen. It's just me and the long, empty road. The next day, I went out for groceries again. Found you! A familiar voice startled me. I turned around, and right behind was that man, the crazy guy with the Pennywise costume. No time to think. I immediately ran away, but he quickly caught up. I ran through the alleys, panicking when I heard those footsteps behind me. I hid behind the wall, trying to hold my heavy breath. Felt like my heart was about to explode out of my chest. Boom! That man suddenly, from nowhere, jumped in front of me. The eyes of his white face widened. His mouth opened with a stench and sharp teeth, as if he wanted to eat me alive.
It's time to pay for the prank!
He screamed while chasing after me. I couldn't die this way. I had to run for my life. My house was only a few steps away, and finally, I rushed into my house. Nearly exhausted, I used the last of my power to latch the lock inside. I ran up into my room, jumped into bed, and covered myself with a blanket. I never thought this would happen to me. My friend asked me why I was offline and if I still did my prank. I couldn't tell him how I was put in danger with my silly prank. Now that I was safe, I lay there and fell asleep. When I woke up, it was already dark. I crept out of bed, moved toward the window, and opened it. The man wasn't there. I guess he had finished his joke and given me up. So I opened Omegle again, and felt so relieved there was no sign of Pennywise the clown. Feeling hungry, I decided to go downstairs and find something to eat. Just then, I saw my sister opening the door to let someone in.
Robbie, say hi to our new neighbor. He's just moved in,
she said, and went to the kitchen to take a drink. The guest smiled at me and gave me a gift box. For you. He was so kind. I said thanks as I received his gift box and unboxed it. But as soon as I did, my face turned pale and I dropped it on the floor. At that moment, I heard the door lock. Inside the box was a Pennywise mask. The friendly neighbor turned out to be the one I always dreaded. He wasn't friendly anymore. Instead, he grinned and said,
"Gotcha!"
Just another Saturday night, my wife and daughter and I went to IKEA for some furniture. We wanted to prepare for our beloved child, who was already of school age. We planned to have dinner somewhere and then go shopping. When dinner was over, I told them to hang on a second and then got to the bathroom. But after seeing a long queue at the restaurant restroom, I decided to find another one. Luckily, there was a bathroom for guests downstairs. Finally, thank God! A guy ran over me. He must have been in an awful rush. I opened the door just 5 seconds after him to see the narrow white hallway, but that man just disappeared. I walked around but couldn't find any restrooms inside. Here came another door. This must be it, I mumbled and quickly opened it. Oh my goodness, I was surprised to see behind the door a lot of shelves with boxes, so no bathroom. I was disappointed. This was just a warehouse instead of a toilet. I turned back angrily, but in front of me was a wall. What the hell was going on? Where was the door I had just gone through? Unable to hold it any longer, I found an old empty box and peed inside of it. 15 minutes had passed since I left the table. I called my wife to help me find the way out. No signal. Things started to get out of control. I had to find a way out of here as soon as possible. I found a knife on the shelf, so I grabbed it to protect myself, then walked slowly forward. How can IKEA have such a huge warehouse? Furniture piled up here. Had anyone else gotten lost in here before? I kept going straight ahead, hoping to find the exit. It had been a while. My wife and daughter must be worried, so I kept walking on aimlessly. An hour passed. I was so scared. I screamed for help, but no one heard. I tried to use the GPS on my phone to find the location, but it didn't work without signal, like a rat caught in a trap. I was almost crazy. Suddenly, I caught a glimpse of a yellow figure wearing an IKEA uniform from afar. I was saved. I'd better run to him soon, or else I would have to stay here all night since it was almost closing time. So I ran and called out, "Excuse me! Excuse me! Could you help me get out of here?" But that person didn't seem to hear me. He stood there, emotionless, and turned his back on me. "Pardon me, could you help?" But I didn't feel better. A shiver went down my spine when I saw a faceless creature wearing an IKEA uniform. His two unusually large hands were hanging loose. I stepped back shakingly, but it didn't seem to notice me. I quickly crept away from there, and at that moment, I realized that more and more such creatures appeared around.
It's closing time. Please leave the store.
That announcement was like a signal for these freak creatures to be alive. They all started to move. Sensing the danger, I started running from that place. The monsters rushed towards me. Holding the knife firmly in my hand, I started slashing at them repeatedly. They weren't fast, but there were so many of them, and I was soon exhausted. I felt hopeless. Perhaps I would die here this way. They were too numerous to kill all of them. Suddenly, one of them grabbed my legs, and they reached out their arms toward me. Was I ready to die? No. I thought about my family while trying to crawl out, but I was getting weaker and weaker. My hand went numb, the knife fell from my fingers, and my eyes were blurred with sweat and blood. And in front of me was just an empty wall. Wall? Wall? At that point, a door suddenly appeared in front of me, as if finding a light at the end of the path. I grabbed the knife, trying to get to the door before it disappeared. I thought I had escaped from this infinite space, but I was wrong. The door led me to another dimension. I'd just entered a loophole in IKEA. And through this distance, I saw a creature in IKEA uniform, standing there motionless, like a statue. No! No! No!
The city that never sleeps is probably just too afraid to close its eyes. The House of Death, a famous brownstone off Fifth Avenue, is reportedly terrorized by a whopping 22 ghosts. Shockingly, it became the crime scene of the latest case. As reported, the victims were a man and a girl, believed to be dad and daughter.
Woohoo! Guys, we found our next destination. Here we go, New York City! Phew! Hello, everyone. It's Ben again. The flight to New York was delayed by 2 hours. Anyways, let me show you House of Death, one of the most famous haunted houses in America. Okay, see you guys inside.
Working as a TikTok streamer is not as fun as I expected. I've created content inspired by haunted places, which was supposed to be viral. However, a few months have passed and my channel still only has 1,000 followers. House of Death, please make me shine. I dragged my suitcase inside the house. My plan is to spend the night here.
Okay guys, I'm in. As you can see, there's dust everywhere. I guess this place was abandoned for a while. I don't know why, but this place gives me chills.
Then, I headed to a room, which appeared to be a bedroom, to set up the lights for tonight's stream. Jesus, this house isn't as scary as it's described on the TV. In this case, I guess I have to use that trick.
Oh, I guess we've got enough people here. Make sure you turn the light off to get the show started. Right. The most recent case happened 10 years ago, but the news actually covered a part of it. I've asked around, and it turns out before the murder happened, a family used to live here. 3 people, in fact. Yes, the news never mentioned the mother, right? From what I heard from the neighbors, that night, they heard the sound of a man screaming. The father, yes, and then the little girl. Police searched everywhere, but the mother was never found, and the murder weapon was an ice pick. So sure enough, I think the mother murdered her husband and daughter, then killed herself somewhere.
The comment section started to get lively.
Why? Today we will find out why she did what she did.
Then, more and more commenting. I thought it was because they were excited, but I was wrong.
Guys, you know I'm not scared of this stuff, right?
Just then, a sudden sound in the doorway startled me. It's like something falling to the floor.
Who's that?
I turned around to see no one, so I left my chair and got to the doorway.
Guys, you won't believe what I just found.
I tremblingly showed them what I had just picked up in the hallway. The ice pick.
Okay, guys, it's time we cleared things up.
While everyone was commenting on the ice pick, I set up my tools on the table.
All you need is paper, 2 candles, a lighter, a needle, and a bit of blood from the person who's communicating with ghosts.
I poked my thumb with a needle and squeezed it to get the blood out. Then, I put 2 straight red dots on the A4 paper. Below each dot, I wrote yes, no in red. Next, place 2 candles on top of the 2 dots and light the fire.
I haven't tried this yet, so I don't know how effective it is. But now we'll start the summoning, shall we?
The number of viewers is increasing, as well as my heart rate is increasing.
Spirit? Spirit? Come here. Spirit? Spirit? Are you here?
The screen is flooded with comments. Is there someone behind? I turned around, but there was no sign of anyone.
You guys almost got me.
I don't pay attention to the comments anymore and continue to summon the ghost.
Spirit? 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 Are you here? Oh my god. Did you see that? The yes candle just flickered. This is really happening.
Okay, I have to stay calm and ask questions.
Spirit, you used to live here, right? Spirit, you're 20 years older, right?
So maybe I'm talking to the murdered daughter. I'll keep asking the question.
Spirit, were you murdered in this house? Guys, I've got goosebumps, but I still have to ask the important question. Spirit, you were murdered by your mother, right? So, yeah, I'm talking to that little girl. Now we're going to find out why the mother did it. But first, Spirit, besides you, is there anyone else in this house? And that is your mother? It's her! She's in this house!
Suddenly, the light flickered like crazy. Jesus, this damn house gave me a stroke of fear. But in return, the number of viewers is higher than ever.
What's wrong with everyone? Stop teasing me! There's no one behind! Okay, I'll go check. Wait for 10 seconds. Don't leave the screen. I got you! So this is a prank as a special gift to 1K followers. Thank you all for supporting me the whole time.
I turned to Jane, who was also laughing. Wow, she's such a shameless makeup witch. Even though I knew it was all fake, Her makeup was so scary that I didn't dare look her straight in the eye.
Come on, Ben. You have to get used to this. Don't forget to pay me as you promised.
I couldn't focus on Jane's words. All I notice now is the empty table.
Jane, did you hide the ice pick? I've just left it right here.
Jane looked at me bewildered. Just then, her face turned painful. Blood splashed everywhere. Oh my God! Her eye was stabbed by an ice pick from behind. I have to get out of here right now.
Receiving calls from viewers of a TikTok streaming video, the police rushed to the crime scene, known as House of Death. All they found is a corpse of a girl. She was stabbed in the eye and died of blood loss. Currently, the TikToker Benjamin is still missing. The police will continue to investigate.
Spirit, is your mother still alive?